Welcome to the Krueg Show after Warrior basketball tonight. Larry Krueger, Dan Coach Emilio off tonight. Great Ryan Smith in the house, looking very much like a telephone at this moment. Barry Baller in the bottom square. Big Frank Red in the house. I don't smell anything, so I don't think Cy has arrived quite yet, but I get the feeling he'll be by. Welcome to the Krueg Show. Good night for Warrior basketball. What a disastrous first quarter, guys, as far as Golden State defensively. They just couldn't do it. I mean, the first quarter just started awful, and they looked terrible. But then the second quarter, DiVincenzo in the bench unit really got them going. That kind of jump-started them, and Golden State went on a nice run. Clay had 20 in the first half, and we got to see a little sighting of Moses Moody, who was on the floor for 6.5 minutes in the first half, and the Warriors, while Moody was on the floor, outscored the Wizards by 15 points over that span. And then Golden State gets challenged at the end by a Wizards team that came back on them and yet prevail 135-126. Golden State losing the fourth quarter 33-29, but still winning the game by 9. Good win for the Warriors. Interesting day on a lot of fronts for the Warriors, and we got a lot to talk about tonight. But guys, what'd you think of the game? 27. Clay had 20 in the first half, finished with 27. Big second half for Wiggins. He had 29, 13 and 13 for Looney, and 4 assists. He just had a phenomenal game. 14 for Poole on 4 of 11 shooting, and then a couple big bench efforts. Jermichael Green gave him 14 and DiVincenzo 17. What stood out to you guys?
I'll just say it's good that they're back on track. It was great to see Clay have a good game. Poole didn't have his best game, but he strung together now 3 in a row, really playing really well. Last game, a little poor for Wiggins, but now this is 3 out of 4 for Wiggins. It does feel like they're starting to kind of catch a stride. And it's just really important that they were able to come back and they didn't let this one get out of hand.
Yeah. Wizards started off hot. Porzingis was getting anything he wanted early in that game, 16 after the first quarter. And while Porzingis was kind of cooking, I'm thinking on the other side, I'm like, you got to go at Porzingis because we know how phenomenally talented he is. He's very skilled for being 7'3", but defensively, you can take advantage of him. He's either going to sag off you, and they did that in the third quarter. That's when I noticed when the Warriors went on that big third quarter run, they were going at Porzingis. Jermichael Green was getting open threes because the zinger didn't want to step out. He was also switching on to Wiggins, and Wiggins was going at him. So I liked how they made the adjustment because early on, you want to make Porzingis defend. But like you stated, Larry, Andrew Wiggins was big time. Kevon Looney, another double-double. I mean, where would this team be without Kevon Looney? He's been terrific. Career highs across the board this season. Looney's been big time. Jermichael Green was perfect from the field. He was knocking down threes. I really love the energy Jermichael Green's been playing with the last couple weeks because the Warriors are going to need that to continue.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what is being said. The Wizards actually, their roster is almost as good as the Warriors. I know it might sound strange to a lot of people because they don't win a lot of games. But if you look at their roster, they got a very good roster. So, I mean, from the neck up, I thought that the Warriors needed to really inflict their will on this team. And I noticed the collective toughness from this team. It wasn't anybody who got on the floor tonight that did not belong on the floor. And I think that collective focus that they had was a deciding factor in terms of siding the game to their side. It wasn't really the coaching tonight. I thought it was the players. Also, Steve Kerr simplified his offense. Those cross streams along the baseline, that's a high school offense. And sometimes a high school offense is what you have to run, as opposed to a very sophisticated offense that elicits three-point shots. They got the ball inside. Dante DiVincenzo, I love everything about this guy. I've said it a gazillion times. He's big awesome. And Jordan Poole, in spite of not having a great game, he made he made 2 or 3 really physical plays tonight that I think endeared him to the referees. If you remember that last basket, he got the foul call, and it was a kind of a delayed reaction. But I think because he made a couple of tough plays and he didn't complain as much, it sent the message to the referees. I think it helped them tonight.
Well, I'll tell you what I saw as well is that the Warriors shared the ball. I mean, the second unit led the way and showed how to do this thing. The second unit had 17 assists. Before Side jumps in here,
it's actually Dan and Carl are in the green room.
Let's get these
That's
guys
big
in
time.
here. In fact, we've got I saw a comment in the chat here. Mario, what's that, Danny? Danny, Mario has a direct question for you.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
Not the greatest. I probably won't be on too long. I just took a home COVID test. It said it was positive, but I don't know. It's just fever, sweats, and stuff like that. But
hope you feel better, Dan.
Take care, my friend.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Well, Danny, why don't you, and then can we bring in
Carl? Do a little bragging on that parlay, Dan. The man is hot. He's hot on his forehead, and he's hot in the game.
There we go. I did a 7-leg parlay tonight, and won a few Benjamins again. I had DiVincenzo scoring 10 points, and also making 2 threes. Beal and Clay to get 20 points.
Danny, nobody cares. You've got a terrible disease that you've contracted. How are you feeling? Are you okay?
I'm all right. It's just,
will you make it through? I mean, are you concerned? I mean, have you had it before?
Yeah, I've had it before. I've had it worse. This doesn't feel as bad. It feels like a cold. That's what it feels like.
Has your wife had it?
Yeah.
She's Buster, has Faith had it?
Buster's, he keeps. I think he's
Carl
okay.
Foster joining in the mix here. We're Carl, good to see you. Great to see you. I was just telling Frank before we went live how you're just constant wisdom. So anytime I can get wisdom, I go for it. But Danny has alerted us that he's got the COVID-19. So I've had it twice.
Yeah, it's my time.
If
the test is accurate, I don't know. I always thought COVID was coronavirus is a cold, so I don't know how those.
I think it's just different every time, man. But what you're saying sounds about right. Like just kind of the cold. Sounds like when my dad got it. And also, I got to say before anyone else brings it up, I'm mad at myself for not bringing it up. The thing that stood out to me the most out of that whole game is Jermichael Green putting together a great stretch ball.
Oh yeah,
passing the ball. I think he had 5 assists tonight. That's what I was saying. The Warriors' second unit really shared the basketball, and Ty Jerome had a really nice night. I mean, I know Sai's not big on Ty Jerome, Red, but
it's funny at this point, man, right?
You actually, Rye, could you call up Cyrus's Twitter timeline?
Let's pull it up.
Because he's gone Ty Jerome specific.
Oh yeah, I came on here just to give Ty a bad time. Give Cy a bad.
He's seriously Cy is like full Alan Dershowitz right now. He's just like going right to town, like absolutely. Let's go to Cy's Twitter. He's all over Ty Jerome.
You got to get the tweets and replies. I'm sure he threw some replies out there.
But he's got a tweet in there about Ty Jerome, and
I'm going to start documenting every dumb.
I thought I had Cy where he needed to be about 2 months ago, and we've had a couple of conversations. He's finally bought in a little bit to Anthony Lamb, and I thought he was kind of making his move on Ty Jerome. I got into a Facebook battle earlier tonight with somebody who just wants to kill Ty Jerome. I'm like, there's so many people that have clearly never played the game at any high level that really just don't understand how hard it is to be a 13th or 15th guy on an NBA roster.
Carl, you talking up Anthony Lamb is music to my ears because I feel like I've been the sole kind of Anthony Lamb defender when you're not here, Carl. I've been trying to pound the table that, hey, Anthony Lamb, this guy's earning minutes. He might earn this last roster spot depending on, I know we're going to get to some buyout talk, depending on who's available. But I like Carl coming to my defense. Fellas, Anthony Lamb, man, this guy's a player. He just makes winning plays, right, Carl?
When I look at him, And Frank and I go back and forth a little bit on this. I see the same things people see in other guys that are just great blender guys. I mean, Judd Buechler was one of Steve Kerr's teammates in Chicago. I mean, we all know what Milwaukee just did at the trade deadline. They're just certain guys that are, 6'5" to 6'7". They can make plays. Alex Caruso is that type of guy. They're just about winning, man. And at the end of the day,
Carl.
the rest of that means nothing.
There's pros and cons to Anthony Lamb. I'll give you that. I have located the tweet in question from Cy. He says, I'm going to start documenting every dumb Ty Jerome play, and then in parentheses, of which there are many. Which that really, when you go parentheses, I mean,
well, you could do that about any player.
He has a whole thread.
Because most don't show on the stat sheet, yet he does nothing to bring the Warriors success. In 3 minutes of play so far tonight, he is -6 on the plus-minus with no points. And then Cy said a thread. So he's like trying to get. He's making a move. That's a Twitter move. Right?
It kills Cy's argument. They played 4 quarters. And he wound up plus 12.
I was going to say.
Yeah, he ended up with
game. He wound up
7 assists, 9 points, 7 assists.
9.7 assists plus 12.
Every one of his points.
And only 1 turnover.
Yeah.
Well, what I think it was, I think Jerome was on the sideline looking at his Twitter
Real cheese, I am happy. You're right, brother.
Cy's tweet come across, and Jerome said, hey, I better pick it up. Cy's on my butt.
It's like Steph when he goes in the locker room at halftime. Also, just really quickly, just to get this out as well, somebody asked me how my stomach's feeling. I just tweeted before this. Oh, so this is brutal. So I was like, I just want to put something in my stomach. I didn't have any dinner. I want something before the stream. I don't know how long it's going to go. So I was like, I'll just whip up a quesadilla. Whipped up a quesadilla, ate it real quick. All good. But I just had my TV going, and then the kitchen, I didn't have any kitchen lights on. So it was dark. But, I know my way around there. I can do everything. I go to put the tortillas back in the fridge. The kitchen light shines. The entire freaking things are just covered in mold.
Oh,
so, yeah. So I said there may be.
You're clearly single.
Yeah. No. It's worse than that. It's
this is gonna be one of those streams. We started with 6, but we got down to 4, and then it's like, this is almost like we call this Krueg Show Island. You know what I mean? Who's going to be the last man standing on Krueg Show Island?
It won't be me. I know that.
Danny's got the vid.
Yeah,
Ryan's eating mold. Baller's got the flat cap, so you never know. And it's, Cy's going to be in here with the eyes half masked. What's going on, guys?
That. I'm going to start calling that half the ski lift.
Okay, we got a lot to get to. There's a lot of interesting things tonight beyond the game itself, because the game itself was really interesting. The Wizards have talent. There's no question. Porzingis, Beal, none kind of dominated the scoring in the first half. But they were, listening today to Bob Myers talk about the possibility of a buyout. And this really caught me. I don't know if we can play this audio. I saw it on Twitter, but he basically said, it doesn't matter if he's 7 feet tall or 8 feet tall. Any buyout conversation has to be done in collaboration with the coaching staff, because why bring in a player in if they're not going to use him?
Ouch.
What?
Did he drop a mic after you said that?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Excuse me? I think we need to discuss that. For guys who know, they only say exactly what they want to say. This guy's an agent. He doesn't just have stream of consciousness. I have stream of consciousness. He doesn't. Not in front of a microphone. What do you guys make of that? Are we seeing it? Is that a Myers message to Kerr? Is that hey, front office, we drafted James Wiseman, and now coaching staff, you decided you couldn't use him or couldn't figure out a way to use him, and now I have to trade him at a loss, and I'm kind of pissed. There's a lot of smart people in this room that know a lot about the Warriors and a lot about Myers and Kerr and a lot about basketball. I'll just bat it out to you guys. What do you make of that? Who wants to go first?
I think that's twofold. I think one of the things you have to look at is you have to be coy when you're playing in the role of a general manager, you're the president of a franchise. So that particular comment could be directed at, and I'm not saying specifically, a lot of times fans and other people in the media want to believe that, hey, this is the player that you need to go after. This is who you need to trade for. This is who you need to pick up in the buyout market. And they're just trying to get you to see that just because the guy might be a good player, it doesn't mean that they fit our system and they fit the flow of where we want to go during these last 25 plus games and in a playoff run. So it just kind of curtails some of the fodder. So sometimes they'll throw out a line that sounds like it's maybe directed in one direction and might be directed in another.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of how sometimes I even heard this a little bit about Devontae Graham, that, Willie Green. Sorry, that's the name of the coach, right? Yeah, Willie Green just loves Devontae Graham. They traded him away, and a lot of the stuff people were saying is like they traded him away because as long as Devontae Graham's on the roster, Willie Green's going to play him, and it makes me think, I don't know. Maybe Myers would make a move that I do think he collaborates with Steve Kerr, but maybe he does make a move that's going to force him to play that player and stop playing the Lamb-Jerome combo.
I think it just speaks to some frustration, and I would agree with Carl to a certain extent that you can't really draw a conclusion that Kerr is saying, yo, Wiseman stinks and he's never going to be a player. What I surmise is, he doesn't fit my system. I'm the coach. I'm not going to play him. So I'm kind of stuck as a general manager. So I don't think it's definitive, but I think that is frustration central for Bob Myers because, like the fans, he's thinking to himself, we never got an opportunity to see if this young man can play. And then tonight you watch the Warriors, and finally Kerr, on one of the rare occurrences, simplified his offense. You're telling me you can't set a block screen for Wiseman to go from left to right, to post up on his strong side and shoot a baby hook, as opposed to getting the ball at the three-point line, passing it to a wing and cutting? So they're not on the same page, but I don't think it's real definitive about one particular message. I think it's various things at play right now.
What do you think, Baller? I mean, to me, I don't know. I mean, that to me sounded kind of like a shot at Kerr and a shot at the coaching staff. Like, I mean, maybe am I being overly? I mean, that seems like a public shot at Kerr, is it not?
Yeah, it does. It does, Larry. And I'm wondering, what player is it that Bob Myers wants on the floor that Steve Kerr's not playing? I mean, the guy that comes to mind is James Wiseman. So sounds like Bob Myers wanted to see what he had in Wiseman, and Kerr, we all know how reluctant he was to give James these minutes. And it sounded like Bob was voicing some frustration about it.
Moody too.
He looked good tonight, by the way.
He did look good tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all know that Moses can play.
He wasn't talking about the trade deadline activity. He was talking specifically about the buyout market. So when you're looking at the buyout market, there's about 3 or 4 guys that many people would say they might target. We know they're not going after Terrence Ross because he's already knows where he's going. They're not looking at another guard. So it's clearly going to be either one of the bigs or one of the wing forwards that might be available, that kind of thing. So I think sometimes, because it has been a long, long trip with Wiseman. I mean, we're talking about a 3-year ride that had some bumps and some bruises along the way. I think we have to look at the fact that as a franchise, they had to make a tough decision. They made it, and they found a piece that fit. Unfortunately, that piece may be a little time elapsed in terms of when we actually get to unplug it and put it back on the floor. But I think they just made a decision about the now and not about the later.
It was, and it's interesting. I mean, obviously we saw over the weekend, they went through with the trade. Wiseman is now a Piston. GP2 is here. Myers stated that he hopes, or Kerr stated, I believe, that he hopes, they don't know the exact timeline on GP2's return, but they're hoping to have him back playing before the playoffs. So that's even more optimistic than what we were talking about the other day. I just think this is an interesting team right now because obviously they've got pelts on the wall. So Steph's out. Steph said today he doesn't have a specific timeline for his return. So we don't know how long he's going to be out. I guess I would throw it out to you guys this way. What is the most important part of this final kick for home in the regular season? Is it about getting a particular seed? Is it about the rhythm and it doesn't matter the seed, just get in, even if it's the play-in tournament? Is it about avoiding the play-in tournament? What's the key to winning the title for Golden State with the group they have, knowing the parameters they have? They're not going to have Steph for a while. They're not going to have GP2 maybe the entire time. Obviously, they don't have a lot of size. Doesn't sound like today, listening to them talk, that they feel like they're going to make a move in the buyout market. By the way, these moves that they made did save Joe Lacob about $37 million in luxury tax bills. So I'm sure, this move is very popular with the ownership, right? He just saved $37 million. I'd be happy if any decision that came up on my day that I got $37 million. So that's the financial side of it. But what do you guys want to see the rest of the way in the regular season? What's important? What's not?
Well, one thing I would say, assuming they lose, they're likely to lose tomorrow, back-to-back, going down to the Clippers. If they're going 29-29, what's it going to take? Can they go their last 24, 16-8, and that only gets them to 45 wins? Is that?
I gotta remember, there's a lot of the tanking teams down the end of the season.
Yeah. I mean, I looked at their schedule. They still have the Lakers a couple times in LA. They've got Phoenix a couple times. They got Memphis twice in Memphis. They've got Milwaukee at home. I mean, there's about 7 games, if you look at it, that look like could be, losses. So, I mean, I think that would get them in, probably even 44 or 43, because it doesn't seem like everybody's going to be over 500, but
41 to get them in.
But what maybe I was encouraged tonight with a couple things, mostly looking at Wiggins, who looked like playoff Wiggins. He was going to the hoop. He was being aggressive, and that was on a not 100% ankle. Wait till that thing heals up over the break. He's going to be explosive. That's what the Warriors need, is get Wiggins, use those post-ups that they had, mismatches. He had mismatches all night, and he was able to just kind of soar up over those guys or take it to the hoop. That's what they need, is Wiggins to come through. That's going to open up, the inside-out game, because they just need Wiggins in a huge way. So I was encouraged with that. And then the other thing that's kind of interesting, I don't know if you guys thought about it, but Draymond's got 15 Ts, 25 games left. One more and he's suspended. I don't know, how does that work? Does it recalculate after, if he gets another one? Can he get suspended more than once, or does that work?
Yeah. It just keeps going up.
Yeah.
But every time he gets a T over 16,
no, I think he gets a couple more.
Does it reset?
Or no, it doesn't reset though. It does
it's
not
like
reset.
3, like 2 or 3, maybe something like that.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's just an escalator.
Hopefully he doesn't get suspended.
What do you think, Carl? What's vital for you for the Warriors down the stretch?
I might be a little bit different than some of the guys on the panel. There are 2 guys to me that are really critical. And let's just take GP2 out of the equation, so that if he happens to be a part of the equation, it becomes a bonus. To me, it really comes down to these 2 guys. Can they find consistency in JaMychal Green? And can Jonathan Kuminga continue to find ways to be smart offensively and disruptive defensively and be more aggressive on the glass? Because when it comes to playoff series, they're playing Denver. They go against Memphis. They have to go against Ayton and Phoenix. They have to play against Sacramento or the Clippers. Those are the top 6, 5 of the top 6. All of those teams can be very, very disruptive on the O boards. They have to be a great defensive rebounding team. We know they'll group rebound. but they've got to find a way to have 2 or 3 guys that they know are going to be focused on it. We know Looney will do a great job. Draymond will do a pretty good job, but they're going to need Kuminga and JaMychal Green. The rest of their players, it's all about flow. And we know once Steph comes back, the flow will come back significantly.
What do you think, Rye? What's important down the stretch? Do you want to avoid the play-in tournament? Do you need a certain win total? Is it about sharing the basketball and just how they're vibing on the court? What's important for Golden State the rest of the way?
I think they got to be at least the 6th seed. I really think that I'll make this prediction. I don't think if they are a play-in team, I don't think they're winning the championship. Because that means also that maybe there was a snag in Steph's, injury or, something else. They're not quite putting together the best regular season down the stretch. And you just can't have that. It's too easy. They just went through this, all you have to do is lose one fluky game. Somebody could get injured and then you just lose another. It's too dang easy. And there's going to be too many decent teams at the bottom of the West. They could play the Lakers. There's going to be a lot of decent teams in there. So I think it's important to at least be a 6 seed, and health, of course, is important. I do think they might need one piece though. I don't know if they've completely eliminated the buyout market. Some guys I maybe would take a look at if they become available. If Olynyk gets bought out, I'd be down. He can hit
Where's
threes.
Pat Bev going?
He's nasty.
Where's Beverly going?
I don't know where Beverly's going, but I'm getting the feeling they are a little guard heavy. Although I do think he would provide some juice. But just in terms of bigger guys, I like Olynyk. Kevin Love on the off chance that he gets bought out would be fantastic, of course. I like Nerlens Noel unless he's already going somewhere, just as a defensive big. And of course, if Seth Curry becomes available, just cause, man, you can't have too much shooting. So
have to.
Those would be my the ones I'd be looking out for as far as buyout market.
Baller,
yeah.
Frank,
Dario
what do you guys think?
Saric.
What's the key for Golden State the rest of the way? Sometimes I'm never knowing what to look for here. Do I look for rhythm? Do I look for wins? You want some combination of both, right? What's the most important thing down the stretch? By the way, JaMychal Green, and we should mention this. Anthony Slater is tweeting out JaMychal Green's has right wrist issue and pain. He's had various points in the second half. He's been holding it, aggravated his wrist a couple times. It's been a problem with him the last couple seasons. So it sounds like Green's got a wrist issue.
Ooh.
But what do you guys think? Baller, Frank, we're kind of going around on this one. What's important for Golden State down the stretch?
First and foremost, Stephen Curry is pivotal to any championship run the Warriors are going to make. Steph Curry needs to get back on the floor and he's got to be close to 100% for this team to win a championship. So that's number one. That's obvious. But I'm looking at Jordan Poole. I want to see more consistency from Jordan Poole. I feel like lately he's playing with a better pace. He's playing with more control within the system. You're seeing less kind of crazy ISO, frantic ball handling that we've kind of seen a bit too much of this year. So I'm looking at Jordan Poole just to maintain this level of consistency. And it's the shot selection with Jordan. And I feel like he is getting better. He's taking better shots. He's taking better care of the ball. So that's what comes to mind. And JaMychal Green, man, this injury, you're telling me that the wrist has been an issue for multiple years. We saw him holding it for a lot of that fourth quarter. So that's a concern too. This team might need another big. And I know we were throwing out some buyout names. A name I didn't hear was Dario Saric. I don't know how you guys think he would fit within the system. He might get bought out. He's a candidate that I'm hearing some rumors about. Thaddeus Young's another vet.
One more that I was.
Thaddeus Young, I've seen his name thrown out there, and I know Ibaka's been talked about ad nauseum. He feels like he hasn't contributed in a meaningful way in a couple of years. But Steph Curry, Jordan,
I think he hit maybe he's expired a little bit. But I'll tell you, the one that is intriguing to me is Kevin Love, because I think Kevin Love would give them a floor spacer and a passer. And it
He's
seems
smart.
like right now, I mean, look at tonight. There was a vibe tonight. Okay, so yeah, we're sitting here talking about, hey, good, nice win. It's a 9-point win over the Wizards at home, but you didn't have Steph Curry. What really jumps out to me is I got this video going in the background here. But what really stood out to me on that was just the 40 assists. And Golden State had 40 assists. I mean, off the bench, Ty Jerome had 7, Jermichael Green had 5, DiVincenzo, Kuminga combined for 5. I mean, 40 assists. That's got to be one of the high points of the season, and only 15 turnovers or 16 turnovers. That's a great ratio right there. To me, I like Golden State when they're sharing the basketball, and tonight was a good example of it. By the way, a couple chats here. Funny money. F Golden State. Let's talk about the Sac Kings. There we go. Ronald BBX. Dante is my new favorite player. He's fit in incredibly well. And it's funny. It's like Dante, played with the Bucks, and then played with the Kings, and then decided, I don't want to play on a bad team with guys who are about their stats. I want to play on a team where it's about winning, because that's what reminds me of Villanova, and that's what reminds me of playing in Milwaukee. And now he's with Golden State, and it's like, I watched Sacramento a bunch with Dante. He's considerably more valuable on this team than he was on the Kings.
No question about that. I'm with Baller with regards to the Warriors. The Jermichael Green news is very painful, because he was looking kind of like that Bielitsa type of player. They run their offense from the top of the key 3-point line, and he's a guy who can consistently make that shot. He's made it with Denver. He made it when he was on Memphis, and he was playing smart basketball. And while he's not the best defensive player, he's tough. So since he came back from his injury, he had been playing good basketball. The other guy's Jordan Poole. I mean, Jordan Poole has a couple of plays every game that you go, what happened? And he had 2 of those plays tonight. He finished strong, but he has to be really, really tight. And Larry, you didn't mention your guy right throughout Nolan's Noel, but you've been beating that drum for a long period of time. He'd be perfect for the Warriors if he got bought out, because he's actually a very smart player. He's not all that skilled, but he's very smart, and I think he'd be a great guy off their bench for 15, 20 minutes a game. So that's enough, I think, because they have such excellent guard play, and when they're right, they have 40 assists. They don't turn the ball over, particularly in the last 4 minutes of the game. The margin for error is really small, but they have enough players who have been there before who can execute under pressure. Look at Dante DiVincenzo. He's won 3 or 4 games by himself this year for the Warriors.
It would be nice if they had a Noel, because he would give them another line of defense. I mean, when you watch Golden State, the one thing that you notice with them compared to some teams in the league is they don't have the guy standing there who's going to act as a deterrent and swat stuff. And Noel's got 7'4" length. He's a 6'11" guy with huge length. And wasn't he like second or third in the league in like block shot per minute a couple years ago? I mean, you're talking about a guy who can really block shots, and he's young. He's a young body guy. They want to go up. They want to get out and run and go up and down. He can do that. So to me, he's a fit. He first has to get bought out. I was hoping for a Sadiq Bey, Nerlens Noel, Wiseman deal.
Well, he's doing no good in Detroit, Noel.
Yeah,
I don't know
Detroit's
why
a
they wouldn't buy him out.
Developmental situation.
Here's the question, Larry.
Yeah.
What matchup do people want to see if the Warriors get past play-in? Because right now, here's the biggest challenge. If you look at the standings, there are 6 teams within 2 games of each other.
Right.
And all of those teams are going to play somewhere close to 500 the rest of the way, because they're all trying to accomplish the same thing. From OKC all the way up to New Orleans, those teams are separated by 2.5 games. So clearly, maybe one team out of the top 6 drops out. I mean, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Dallas? Is it going to be Phoenix? Is it going to be the Clippers? Because the top 3 are probably not going anywhere. I don't see Sacramento with only 24 losses ending up dropping 5 games to where they're in the threat of being grabbed by either the 7th or 8th seed. So it's really going to come down to which of those top 3 or those last 3 that'll be guaranteed a spot are going to give up a spot. And I think Dallas is going to go through some struggles. They lost again tonight. If the Warriors want to make a run, tomorrow's game is not hey, we're going to sit it out and just hope we play pretty good.
They got to try and pull it off.
Speaking to that, Clay is going to play in his first back-to-back this year tomorrow. So
really,
yeah,
interesting.
Hey, it's money time, man. It's money time.
Well, maybe they figure he's got plenty of rest.
Warriors Clippers tomorrow night at the crypto.com arena. You guys want to guess the spread tomorrow night? Warriors at Clippers without looking.
Minus 3.
I'll say 4.5.
I'd say
4.5.
I'd say Warriors +7.
Warriors +7.
Yeah, I'll say Clippers are favored by 5.5.
I'd say Clippers by 3.
2.
I got
Clippers
4.5.
Clippers +8.5.
Wow.
Well, that's probably, you know what? I don't think I bet the Klay Thompson news hasn't been baked in yet.
Or Clippers -8.5, I should say. -8.5.
Okay.
Well, also on the Kevin Love front, I know we brought it up. So the GM of the Cavs came out and said, there's no plans to get rid of Kevin Love. However, the reason why he's now being talked about is he now hasn't played in his last 10 games. He was inactive for only 3 of them, and he was a DMP coach's decision in the other 7. Dean Wade has kind of taken his spot as that stretch. He's actually shooting at a higher percentage than Love is, and he's a pretty good defensive player. So I think that if Kevin Love, because of everything he's done for the franchise, I mean, the guy's been there, it's kind of crazy that he's this long tenured when it kind of felt like he was shoehorned in to help LeBron. But I think that if he asked to be let go, to go be a contributor somewhere else, I think that they would do right by him. And the guy is still in the 99th percentile in defensive rebounding rate. So he will clean up the glass for you still.
And he will get a call from Klay Thompson.
Absolutely.
What do you guys think of Klay's first half, man? When Klay gets it going, it's just so fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
He's been big time. He's been playing absolutely phenomenally since the new year. Just spectacular. It's vintage Klay. He's back. The shot's good. The shot selection. I mean, who cares? Because he's just knocking down, feels like everything.
I will never question his courage. That's the highest compliment that I can pay Klay Thompson. I will never question his courage, his bravery, and his desire to win. Maybe shot selection, but his courage, his bravery, and his desire to win are unquestioned in my book.
And how about his dunk tonight? He had the two-handed dunk in traffic.
Seriously. How about that? In traffic, too.
Raise the roof.
That was nice.
And what they were saying that he was unhappy that they were saying he's kind of got underrated hops. He's like, hey, man, they're not underrated. By the way, at the beginning of the year, Kings got off to a hot start. People said, Warriors will run them down. Warriors for sure will have the better record. Now it's pretty clear. It doesn't look like Sacramento's going to have looks like the Warriors are not going to run down Sacramento. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, it could happen. Kings are 32-24. Warriors are 29-28. Over 1 game over 500. Done in by the fact that they can't win on the road. They're 7-21 on the road. We'll see if they can win on the road against the Clippers tomorrow night. Kings are in Phoenix tomorrow night against the Suns, who are 3-point favorites there. Fox has had a great year. I mean, what do you guys point to in Sacramento? Who turned it around? Does Mike Brown deserve the credit there? Is it Monty McNair? Sacramento obviously has had a bounce back season, and they're 15-12 on the road.
I think Monty McNair and Mike Brown deserve equal pats on the back because he gave Mike a good roster to coach. Mike's an excellent coach. He's done a great job with the roster.
I love the swashbuckling nature of the GM. He was willing to swing for a piece that a lot of people discounted in Sabonis. Sabonis is an acquired taste because he's kind of a throwback to the 70s and 80s. just a big, strong, physical punisher, but he's also a very good passer and decision maker. I thought the trade of Halliburton for him, I loved it at the time. I remember telling Red how much I liked the trade because I like Sabonis, and he brought a winning attitude to a team that didn't have it because of his toughness.
I did not see this coming from the Kings. I'm going to be straight up. I didn't see it coming, so I give a lot of credit to Mike Brown. I mean, you look at how the Warriors have been performing defensively, and we know Mike Brown was the Warriors' defensive coordinator at least last year. Ron Adams, defensive specialist, is still in the building. But I'm giving a lot of credit to Mike Brown. I mean, he's got guys like Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk, Trey Lyles, all playing really good ball, potentially the best ball of those guys' career. So I'm giving a lot of credit to Mike Brown.
I like the fact that they're playing fast and that he put the ball in Fox's hands. And, Fox had kind of regressed, I think, guys, the last couple of years. And to me, if there's one guy that just from the start you could see was energized, and I don't even play fantasy hoops at all, but my 13-year-old does, and he's like, Dad, who should I get in fantasy hoops? And it was like the first week of the season. I'm like, go get De'Aaron Fox, man. He looks like they're gonna put it in his hands. He's gonna have the ball. They're gonna play fast. He's got some shooters, should pile up some assist totals. He had 36 the other night against the Mavericks. To me, I'm happy for the Kings because they haven't been to the playoffs. What's it been? 16 years? It's been a long time. How cool would it be if the Warriors got the 6th seed and we got Sacramento Warriors first round? And, so I had Grant Napier on the live stream last week, and I said, give me your thoughts on Warriors and Kings. He said, Warriors, I think, go to the finals. Kings, I think, get bounced in the first round. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, Mike Brown does not want that matchup.
No. Yeah, now here's the thing, Larry. The Warriors would not be a great matchup for the Kings in the first round. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the Kings have one major ball handler, and that's Fox. And think back last year, Wiggins picking up Luka full court. I mean, they'd be running double teams at him. I mean, he's a hell of a player, but they would have to get somebody to play off of him because they would just try to tire him out. And I don't know if they have a second guy on the roster right now who could carry the load. So they need to play a team that's not going to push up full court like the Warriors will in the first round.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because when I look at the top 6 right now and you say who's going to fall out of that top 6, I mean, you got the Clippers – tomorrow, like Carl said, is a huge game because the Warriors could theoretically be tied with the Clippers if they win, but a loss really puts them kind of, going to be tough to get into that top 6 because you got, I think Phoenix overtakes Sacramento, and I think Sacramento falls back to 4, and then, who's going to be 5? Is it going to be Dallas, the Clippers, Warriors? Where are they going to, and you look at the standings, I mean, it's New Orleans, Minnesota, the Warriors, and Utah are right now the play-in teams. And then Portland is tied with basically Utah, and OKC's a half game back, and then the Lakers are just 2 back. So it's like, I've never seen anything like this. I mean, it's going to be like, when the NFL gets down to these tiebreakers or something, it looks like, what is it going to be? What if you have like all these teams finish with the same record? Like, it's going to be crazy.
The last week, there'll be a team that'll be in the 6 that'll end up out of the playoffs, out of the play-in. And that's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
All I care about is 2 things. I have to see Phoenix play Dallas in the first round. That has to happen. We have to see Kyrie go up against KD.
Yes.
That would be absolutely beautiful. Luka and Booker. We have to see that matchup. And number 2, I really need to see the Pelicans playing where Zion gets a chance to play in a playoff series.
Totally.
Those are 2 things I'm rooting for.
I got to get your guys' thoughts on this.
Hey, and I'm just gonna let you guys. I'm gonna check out here. It's 11:30, and I'm just gonna get some rest. I'm not, I don't want to overdo it. But thanks for all the get well comments.
Thanks for all the laughs through the years.
Yeah.
If it doesn't,
But thanks for all the people in the chat with the get well. Yeah, and I
didn't see anybody say anything actually.
Huge amounts of vitamin D. Somebody mentioned that. I'm taking like
get well,
80,000 units a day. So anyway, all right. Hey,
if you need the good stuff, I know a guy who knows a guy. Give me a call.
All right. Okay.
Go better, Dan.
So do you guys think? Are you guys all pretty convinced that Sac's gonna stay with it? Because just like Carl said, every year, if you look at this time last year, the Bulls were the 2nd seed. They actually might have been the 1 seed, and then I think the Cavs were the 3 seed. I think the Cavs maybe ended up in the play-in. The Bulls ended up as like the 6th seed. They kind of free-falled. Boston at one point was 25-25 last year, and then they won on a run. I still I don't know. This Kings run kind of reminds me of the Bulls last year, where it seems like it's just a little unprecedented, the amount of late close games that Fox is just closing out. And it kind of reminds me of DeRozan last year. I don't know. I can't help but say.
To me, it's about tempo with them, right? Because if they get their kind of game, they win. If they can get you scoring, 120, 130, they're going to win. I mean, look at the games when they've lost. They scored 104 against New Orleans, 104 against Indiana, lost by 3, 114 against Dallas, lost by 8, 110 against Minnesota. But then look at their wins: 133, 140, 130, 133, 132, 139, 135, 136. When they get their tempo and you got to go up and down with them, they can beat you. And they beat some teams that they probably shouldn't even beat because they play their tempo. I mean, they beat Memphis by 33. When they can get out and run, I think they're really scary. Do we have Cy down here in the bottom of the screen? Let me see if I can get him in the. There we go. Wait.
One thing's for sure. That style of play is not going to be the formula that is going to be successful for 2 rounds or more come NBA playoffs. You're not going to be averaging 130 points a game because we know what happens in a playoff series just because of the amount of planning teams can have. The other thing is they have to hope that Sabonis does not have too much fun in All-Star weekend. Because if he starts feeling himself and starts, all of a sudden he's wearing nice fits to the game. I mean, hey, put on some overalls, bring a pitchfork, man. Just, just go back to your work ethic.
Hey, Larry, the other thing about Sac, you're right. The one thing that coincides with their losses also, they don't win when De'Aaron Fox doesn't play well. So, again, it's one of those situations where teams are going to come at him in the playoffs. And he might be superhuman, but I'm sure Mike Brown's already thinking about the playoffs now in the back of his head to counter that because they're going to go after De'Aaron because they generally don't win if he doesn't play well.
He's got the ball in his hands. We welcome in the great Cyrus Satsis, who's advertising across his chest, locked on Warriors. He's locked on. What exactly does that give you when you're locked on like that? I mean, it's kind of like a barnacle on a boat, right? Isn't that kind of like locked on the bottom of a boat?
That could be one. Sure. Yeah. Yes.
What kind of extra exclusives now that you're in the world of locked on do you have because of your locked on association?
None.
None.
That hasn't given me much. It's been all about the KNVR thing that Larry, you and I did. That started everything. I'd say that developed most of my connections.
How many people are locked on Warriors right now?
In what sense?
What's our subscriber base looking like? I mean,
you have over double what we have. We're at about 6,000.
I'm not being competitive with you, bro. I'm just checking in, showing some love.
So you might have trying to minors in there.
I would have asked you if you were 3 times the size.
You're kicking my ass big time, deservedly so, of course.
What are you guys? Is there anything that we can do with our audience to direct them to Locked On?
Just go subscribe, Locked On Warriors, baby.
There you go. And how many times you go? You go once a day for a half hour? Once a day for an hour?
We're the only daily Warriors podcast, correct?
Hey,
There you go.
I can tell you a guaranteed way to add another 3,000 to 5,000 subscribers.
Oh no.
Interview Ty Jerome, baby.
Yeah, Ty Jerome looked pretty good tonight.
Got a big fan base, man.
A lot of people in the chat. Jim Olay, when do I get to see the Ty Jerome interview over on Lockdown?
Oh wow!
You know who's going to be on there first is we're going to get Ryan Rollins on there. He was supposed to come on.
Okay.
You interviewed him, didn't you, Larry? Like a couple months ago.
Yeah, he was in studio at 95.7 The Game for an hour. Him and PBJ, as they call him, Patrick Baldwin.
I love.
And I'll tell you this: Ty Jerome is nice. He's a great dude.
I'm sure.
I was really nervous, kind of under the radar nervous at the trade deadline when I saw these rumors. Some of them had him just as a throw in. That's the wrong guy to throw into a deal right now. He's got a ton of drive. He's had some physical problems with that. Was it the foot or ankle or whatever? He's got a foot problem, but he compares his game to CJ McCollum, and I could see that. And there's a lot of smoothness and talent there.
Who are you talking about?
I would love to buy stock.
He's talking Rollins.
Rollins.
Yeah, well, he averaged 19.5 in Santa Cruz. I think he will be. Could be. They invested $3 million in him. It's weird just to move 7 places up in the draft to pick him up. Yeah, did you see that picture of him in the strip club though? Like I saw that just recently, and I can never unsee that now because he had the biggest shit-eating grin on his face. He just looked so happy, and he was wearing a hoodie with all these cash stacks in the pockets, and they were like bulging out, like all these plastic bags with like big.
I didn't see the picture. I didn't. Funny you see.
It's hilarious, man.
I'm sure it's a classic. Either way, I'm all about him. GTC Reels. Cy is money like a Ty Jerome floater.
They are,
now,
dude. I'll get those floaters are legit.
GTC Reels has been saving his $1.99, waiting for you to come in the room on that one.
Well, I'll say, like, if Jason Tatum had Ty Jerome's floater, Jason Tatum would take that final step. That's like the Ty Jerome floater is legit, man. I'll give him that all day, every day. That's
Tom Pierce says we need more Kylan Mills on our show. Cy is hogging Kylan.
Come on, man. Come on. I'm not touching that. Come on. Come on, man.
What do you think of the game tonight, Cy?
Good, not great is the best way to judge it. It's the Wizards. The Wizards are a team that you can't really be like stoked beating them, but at the same time, they won, so you got to be happy. But the Warriors, for most of the game, like when the Warriors were blowing them out, they were actually leading in points in the paint. They were leading that in that category 40-34. And that's an area they've struggled all season long. And I don't know what the salve is for that, other than just actually attacking the paint more, because for some reason the team's afraid to do that. They still lost that battle ultimately. I think the final run was 56-54. The Wizards won that in that category, but they just got to attack the paint more. You'll get free throws. You'll get easier buckets. I mean, there's a reason why when you don't win that battle, you oftentimes struggle, because those are the easiest buckets. It's like the Warriors are making life more difficult on themselves, and I don't know why, but yeah. So, but they won.
Because I think that might be a fallacy that those are the easiest buckets. I mean, over the course of a marathon NBA season, driving in and drawing contact and physically going at somebody's chest night after night after night is probably more, that takes more energy than it does to kind of just square up and hoist from three, you don't have to go anywhere. But you know what I'm saying? It's just, maybe that's it. But I'll say this though. I like them. I like Wiggins going to the hole. I like Poole going to the hole. There's 3 or 4 guys on this team that settle for outside shots that I like better, much better going to the basket. I don't know how you guys feel, but Wiggins especially. I thought, to me, Wiggins in the playoffs last year, if you said, what was Wiggins in the playoffs last year? He rebounded with a vengeance, and he attacked the rim instead of just kind of settling for kind of perimeter shots.
Agreed. And his post game was huge tonight. You're seeing that getting better and better, which is awesome, because he's one of the only guys in the team. Him and Looney really are the only guys in the team that actually, back their way toward the rim. And that's the other thing. You don't have to always necessarily attack, to get points in the paint. You don't have to go in there full force, trying to draw fouls and getting hacked. you can also back your way in there, and you can also get those through offensive rebounds. There's a lot of different ways you can get points in the paint, and the Warriors are just not doing that. And I think that's one area they should improve in. I hope they improve it.
One of the things I got to get your guys' thoughts on, I mean, if you look at Golden State right now, Rollins, we just talked about him. He's out for the year with his injury. GP2's out. They're saying at least a month, and they're going to reassess at that point. Andre Iguodala is out. Really, never at any point was he in. They have an empty spot on their roster. Then you mix in the fact that Steph is still hurt. There's no timetable for his return. That leaves 10 guys. And then the rookie, Patrick Baldwin Jr., who's only played in 15 games, plus Wiggins, who's now dealing with an ankle sprain. So how vital is it for Golden State to be a player in the buyout market? What is it? What position is it? Do you want to go? Do you want a wing? Do you want a defender? Do you want an athlete? Do you want a big, a shot blocker, a stretch four, somebody who can stretch the floor a little bit, like a Love? What kind of player? And do who if we go around the room here, you can add one guy. Who do you want to add to this mix?
Nerlens Noel.
Nerlens Noel for Frank.
Yeah.
Carl?
Either Nerlens or Dedmon. Somebody who's long.
Dedmon went to the Sixers today.
Oh boy. Well, there goes that. But the other thing to think about, Larry, is the two-way guys are both running shallow on the amount of available time before they have to be under contract. So that shrunk the bench even more.
Are they going to have to choose between those two-way guys? Can't they make one of those guys a permanent guy?
Could. I mean, will they is the bigger question. I feel
should they make Ty Jerome a full-time guy, Si?
Well, I feel it's what's weird to me is I feel like if they were gonna do it, they would have done it by now, because the fact that they're not doing it makes Kerr have to count the games and hold Blam back some. So that tells me that they're probably not going to do it. And what I'm curious about is how much those two-way guys symbolize the underlying riff between Kerr and either Lacob. And I don't know where Myers sits, because until today, I thought Myers was on Kerr's side of all this. But then you heard Myers say those attributions in that press conference, and he seemed borderline agitated at Kerr. Well, we'll do the buyout market if it's a player that our coach will play.
That was my read as well. I looked at it as, to me, it seemed almost like Myers was doing something I've never seen him do before, and that's kind of take a public shot at Kerr.
Yes. And that's so mixed. And I think that is a huge reason why you may not see the two-way guys sign to guaranteed deals, because Kerr is basically playing this game where he played the two-way guys over Wiseman. He's playing them over Moody. Kuminga only got 13 minutes tonight. He only got 14 in the Lakers game. So I don't know why his minutes are being cut down. So I don't know. This whole thing's weird, man. And it might cost him a title, which is super sad. It's crazy.
By the way, Kerr spoke about Wiseman today, guys, and this is what he said. He said, I think between the injuries and the inexperience, coming to a team like ours that's fighting and playing for a championship, and a group that's been together a long time, it was hard for him. It was hard for me to give James the runway that he needed.
Kind of truthful, but you're the coach. You decide who plays, and you know what? Players' confidence rises with production. So if the young man is on the court playing well and showing signs that he's improving and he's giving everything he has, then they would have wrapped their arms around him. But if they didn't see that, then their feelings are going to be their feelings, and I totally get it.
Man, what's a wild one revisiting is that article where Steph was saying, hopefully, 6, 8 years down the line, Wiseman's winning MVPs. That was this summer. That's pretty wild. And as far as for me, the guys I'd prioritize, I think I would say Noel, or I'm cheating with 3. I'm going to say Nerlens, Kevin Love, or Kelly Olynyk. Kelly Olynyk, even though he is annoying as hell, just as watch. I mean, there's a lot of rumors that they're going to buy him out.
Okay.
but I mean, he's still shooting 40% from three, plays pretty tough defense, somewhat of a dirty player, but also, I mean, the guy's been in big games. Remember that Wizards Boston series, maybe what was it, 6 years ago? He was huge in that. Yeah, so I like.
If you like the hairband, if you like the headband,
he's got Belitzaism all over him.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's good.
Yeah.
He's a good
Shoot
player.
it.
He's a
He can shoot
basketball
it.
player.
Kerr, by the way, also said, as far as Wiseman today, I was all in on drafting James when we did. I was
Yes.
part of the group. Loved the ability, loved everything that we saw. So he wasn't trying to in any way point the finger at management, but it was interesting that Myers was like, well, we could get a guy who's 8 feet tall, and if the coaching staff ain't going to play him, you always got to wonder when people start talking about, it's like Kyle Shanahan, is this guy going to be ready? I don't know if anybody's going to be alive on Sunday. I don't even know if I'll be alive. When people start going way off,
Yes.
it's almost like a ding, 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 ding.
Well, you also got to remember too, Larry, they're like brothers, and there's a code amongst brothers and family. We can mess with you. Other people can't mess with you. So you could be getting a little bit of chess when you think they're playing checkers.
Yeah. GTC Real, Cy whenever in a jam always depend on Anthony Lamb. There you go.
A proverb?
I threw this up before, but I'll throw it up again. Will the Warriors regret trading James?
I posed that question on Locked On
Wiseman.
Warriors tonight because I just wanted to ask the chat, like, what's your reaction going to be? Like, if this guy suddenly goes to Detroit and he's putting up 20 and 10, like, is there going to be any kickback to Kerr in terms of, I don't know. It just sucks. Like, if he does that, that's going to suck. That'll be an indictment on Kerr. I mean, it just sucks that, like,
it isn't an indictment on Kerr from this standpoint. And I heard Tom Tolbert say this today. If you've got someone you're dating and it's just not working, but they get together with somebody else and they get married and have 5 kids, did you miss on anything? Or did it just work for them? If he doesn't work in this system based on their criteria of success, you can't be concerned about what he does somewhere else because you put your focus on, hey, how can we get the asset that we got to help us? Because here's one thing other NBA teams are finding guys between 6'10" and 7 foot who can find a way to contribute greatly to winning. And that's what they want from a post guy. Contribute to winning. Not be a great player, contribute to winning.
But how can we judge him when he never played? How can Kerr judge him when he never played? Like, how can he,
it would have been nice to have a little bit more of a look-see. They've seen him a lot more than we have, right? Because they've seen him practicing. They've talked the game to him, with him, and they know how he fits and why he fits and why he doesn't fit. In this case, why he doesn't fit. But it also sounds like Tommy's kind of absolving his buddy of blame on the back end. The reality is, if I could spin this another way, I'll come back with, hey, I bought a Ferrari for $250,000 last 2 years ago. And guess what? I bought it for $250,000 2 years ago, and I drove it like 7 times, and it just wasn't very practical. I couldn't park it in the garage where I worked at work, and I just, it wasn't very practical around my neighborhood. I drove it 7 times, and then I sold it this year for $85,000. Do you walk away after hearing that story going, my buddy, you know what? He bought it with a good thought, but he sold it with a good thought. Or do you go, damn fool? You know what I mean?
Did you sell it for $85,000 that you flipped and made $2 million off of, versus waiting to get the $250,000 back 5 years later?
There's that. But I'm just saying, you got an asset, you devalued your asset, you parted with the asset at a lesser value. Yeah. And now you can't, it's like, that's fine, but you can't be right if that asset then appreciates greatly after you get down the road. If he goes to Detroit and becomes an all-timer, yeah, I mean, in the real world, I think whether it be Myers, Kerr, Joe, anybody, the Warriors will be essentially blamed for not getting the best out of James Wiseman.
Well, and shouldn't actions and decisions have consequences? I mean, they had the number 2 pick in the draft, and you got nothing out of it. I mean, literally, like I mean, he claimed responsibility for drafting him, and we all know, anybody who covers this team or who's been behind the scenes knows Kerr is involved in personnel. Like his fingerprints are all over every decision that's made. And so, why did you pick this guy if you never had really any real intention of playing him? Or
I mean, the funny thing is, Cy, is that it's actually like when they first got him, even though he didn't have any training camp and he's coming off a little bit of an injury, they just started him right away and just assumed that he could, get out there and be. I actually think that there is. I would say that it should be favored slightly, but it should be favored that I think he will be an above average NBA player at this point. I do think he will be. It just was never going to happen here. And I think the only way that it gets really painful is if, like, all of a sudden something happens to Steph. Somehow Steph falls off a cliff and Clay falls off a cliff and all these guys fall off a cliff. And it's like, crap. It would be really nice to have Wiseman right now so we could like kind of start building towards the next thing. But I do think that it's just he's a weird kind of fit. I don't really know what he is. Is he a 4? Is he? I kind of think he is kind of that Jaren Jackson type guy who maybe needs a Steven Adams in the middle. But it just wasn't going to happen here. So, I mean, good luck to him.
He definitely has a fascination with his face-up game over traditional big man skills of I'll challenge every shot, I'll grab every rebound. I don't see that kind of monster. Baller, you've been kind of quiet on this one. Where are you? Will the Warriors regret trading James? Do you regret buying the James jersey?
I do. I regret buying the James Wiseman jersey. After the Warriors selected him with the second overall pick. Oh, dude, right after the Warriors picked James Wiseman, I was on the computer. I was salivating out the potential of what could be James Wiseman, right? I watched every leading up to that draft. I had watched everything there was to watch on James Wiseman, dating back to a Wiseman Evan Mobley high school matchup where Evan Mobley considerably punked him, and that had me a bit concerned. Maybe more.
Wow! I wouldn't say he definitely outplayed him, but I mean Wiseman still got off.
Isaiah Stewart also routinely just beat up on James Wiseman in AAU. I watched all that. So anyway, I thought Wiseman was going to be good. I was salivating. But fellas, no. The Warriors are not going to regret trading James Wiseman. He's just lacks some instincts, all right? I've mentioned it on the show. The shot goes up, right? If you're wired the right way as a big, you're hitting the glass. James Wiseman's content with just getting back and going back on transition defense. He's just not wired. Unfortunately, he's not wired the way I want my big guys wired. Shot goes up, I'm hitting the glass. He doesn't have that. The hands to me are still a question. He fumbles a lot of passes, right? And then the last thing I'll mention, not that I want to beat up on James, but the shot, I know the percentage, low volume, obviously he hit few threes this year, but the shot, I feel like the ball kind of comes out of his hand a little clunky, and I don't ever think he's going to be this marksman that I was hoping for when we picked him. I'm thinking maybe he's this Chris Bosh-esque player. That was kind of my mindset. Could he be like a Chris Bosh kind of stretch big? But no, I don't see it. Lacking instincts. He's lacking the mindset to hit the boards. They're not going to regret the trade.
What do you guys think?
There's a difference between regretting the trade and should they have traded him. They don't regret the trade because they're looking at how do we get results sooner. And in their system, they did not believe they could get the results they were looking for sooner. There's only one way to get instincts, big baller, and that is you got to play. And you got to play a lot. And he's going to be in low leverage games. He's going to be in games where he can get a lot of minutes. He's going to be going up in practice against Darton and against their other bigs and Isaiah Stewart and those guys. So he's got a chance to really decide, do I want to be an outstanding NBA player? It's very clear James wants to be an outstanding offensive player. But to be a great big, it's more than just looking Can I dribble it? Can I shoot it? Can I look to score it? Because he's one of the best runners of the floor you're going to find. So it's going to be a very interesting process. I like James. I believe James could become good, but he's not good yet. He's talented, but he's not good yet. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. And I hope he becomes a 4 or 5 time All-Star.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Wiseman, and I don't think the Warriors will regret it because the Warriors kind of, we're different. That's the kind of, we do things different around here. That's that type of, that's their persona. And if they win another championship, then you know what? Nobody really cares. But as a coach and as somebody who learned how to play because of the great coaches that I've had, when a player is not successful, the coaches and the player have failed. So this onus that it is on Wiseman can't catch, Wiseman doesn't do this. Yo, man, I'm a coach. It is my job to develop players.
Love it.
When I look at Wiseman, fundamentally, I know footwork. I know how to rebound. I know how to box out. There's 19 things that I watch this guy not do on the court that are just fundamental. I'm gonna give you a perfect example. Mark, what's Mark, the guy with the Seton Hall? Mark, I can't think
Bryant.
of Mark Bryant. Mark Bryant and I almost went to blows several times in the game.
Red. You're a big boy, but Mark Bryant's a house.
How big are you, Fred?
Listen.
Red's like what 6'7"?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, we played against each other at Seton Hall. And I was at Fordham. He's a tough dude, right? And he's a physically tough guy, but so am I. He was taller than I was. But my point is, Mark Bryant has built a reputation for 20 years as being one of the preeminent big man coaches in the NBA. And he's had a lot of success. And I'm saying that, yo, man, if you give me Wiseman and give me direction on what you want him to learn, it is my responsibility collectively with the other coaches to go and teach him. I just didn't see that from the Warriors. I support the Warriors. They're great, but it's not all on Wiseman. If he goes to Miami or a organization that's really going to teach and focus, he'll become a player.
You know what I've learned for this whole experience with Wiseman is that the guys who created the concept of the draft got it right. Because the teams that take the James Wisemans typically have the ability to put them on the floor, give them the minutes, and develop them. And in this weird situation, this awesome team wound up with a high lottery pick, and they drafted a guy who they, like big shiny object, and they had no plan to go through those lumps and take those bruises. And guess what? This is happening with the 49ers right now with Trey Lance. They did the exact same thing. They were a great team that took a really raw player that needs a lot of development. And the same way as Kerr just kind of eloquently stated that James was not afforded a ramp-up period, Lance is not afforded a ramp-up period, will never be given a ramp-up period. And that's why it's not going to work with him either. I hate to say it, and I love Trey, but the only way Trey works here is if Trey is just like, I'm here long term, and the Niners say, you know what, you're here long term, and you ain't going anywhere, and he decides this. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take, and I don't see them giving him the ramp up period. The Warriors weren't going to give it to James. You know what? I mean, it's just not every. I think in that way, I think Tommy T's right. It's like every situation fits different. He'll fit in Detroit. He'll develop in Detroit. He didn't fit here. He didn't develop here. The Warriors still are not absolved of blame, but I do understand it. And I think the same thing's going to happen with Trey, because who's going to show the patience? At some point, you have to be willing to take your lumps, lose a bunch of games, and develop. And the Warriors weren't willing to do it with James, and the Niners aren't willing to do it with Trey. And I guess we should expect that, right? Because when you're winning, it's so hard to win in pro sports that when you're winning, that takes precedent over everything else, right?
Larry, that was a great point you made about the fact that whoever came up with the drafts did it the right. They had it figured out, because what's the one thing that everyone was pointing to was, oh, look at the Spurs. They had the one down year and then they got Duncan. Yeah, okay, but Duncan was a 4-year college player. That was
ready to step in and contribute. Yeah,
that he was a 4-year phenom. Those don't really come around now, so it is different. It's just too difficult. Go ahead, Carl.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna step off. All right,
Frank.
Awesome.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you. I look forward to the next time. All right,
Frank. Thanks,
have a good
brother.
night,
Frank.
One thing you do have to remember about James, even though I've heard that they're going to guarantee him starting minutes for these last bit of games, they've got a young center.
Yeah.
They picked up a young power forward who needs to develop, who's had an injury issue, who was in Sacramento, who was a number 2 pick.
Who, Marvin Bagley?
Yes. They've also got Isaiah Stewart, who is a pounder and a roughhouse guy.
He's good.
So
yeah, he's good.
Eventually James is going to have to take minutes from them too, because that's pro sports. They don't give anything. You must take it by force. So it's going to be a great opportunity for the young man to grow up, for him to mature, for those that are connected to him. Hey, the Warriors were a great gravy train. It's the most winning franchise right now in the NBA over the last decade. So he saw the best and he saw some tough times as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how much that built his character. I just hope he turns into the player that he's physically capable of becoming. But just like you said, Big Baller, he ain't there yet. And my dad used to say that if potential was a dollar figure, you couldn't take it to the bank.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is well stated. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a break right here and play a couple spots, and then we'll come back with more. Anybody who's got a jet, it is 11 o'clock, and I'm sensitive to you guys have some of you guys have other things going on early morning, possibly. But anybody who wants to hang can hang. Anybody who's got a jet, I totally get that. Good to see all of you, and if anybody needs to bail, that's totally fine right here. And also, we're going to hit a couple spots during the
sausage.
We'll first hear from Telmetrics, then we'll come back and hear from our title sponsor, Pig in a Pickle. But first, this from Telmetrics. And thanks to Tony Cassera and the good people at Cassera's Italian Menswear. They are housing the Krueg Show t-shirts, and they're a proud sponsor of the show as well. The Krueg Show t-shirt, the Krueg Show podcast t-shirt is available there at their store in Dublin. Their address is 7372 San Ramon Road in Dublin, California. And go see Tony Cassera and get yourself a Krueg Show t-shirt and support the show. And special thanks to our sponsor, New York Style Italian Sausage. That's right, NewYorkStyleSausage.com is their website. Phenomenal product, whether it's the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy, the chorizo. You cannot go wrong with New York Style Italian Sausage. Once again, NewYorkStyleSausage.com. Often imitated, never equaled.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never going to deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it. Guaranteed.
All right, welcome back to the Krueg Show, the Pig in a Pickle Krueg Show. We got to thank our title sponsor, Pig in a Pickle. Check them out, piginapickle.com. That's right, piginapickle.com. And they've got 2 locations, phenomenal barbecue. If you love killer barbecue and you're in the Bay Area, you got to check them out. They're in Marin County, 341 Corte Madera Town Center, right there in central Corte Madera. And they're also in Emeryville, in the Emeryville Public Marketplace. They're open 7 days a week in Marin, 5 days a week, Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville, and it is phenomenal. If you haven't been there, they're open 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. The brisket is amazing. The pulled pork, the baby back ribs, the barbecue chicken, the house-made hot links. It's all awesome. Incredible. My favorite,
Hungry.
beef brisket chili. You got to get the beef brisket chili. The collard greens. I don't know if you're a collard greens guy, but I am. They're really good. Also, the kettle chips cooked in beef fat and then seasoned with the same rub that goes on the barbecue chicken.
Damn.
Is just absolutely the bomb. So check them out. Corte Madera, 7 days a week. They're also in Emeryville, Wednesday through Sunday. They do catering. They've got a whole selection of craft beers. They have a kids menu. They have family menus. And also they do salads. How about a salad with a little beef brisket on the top there? Woo-wee. And they also have the hot link sandwiches, the chicken salad sandwich, the pulled pork sandwich. I went beef brisket sandwich and potato chips here last Saturday. Check out Pig in a Pickle, proud sponsors of the Krueg Show. All right. Welcome back. Grilled Cheese says, need a Pig in a Pickle video showing the meats. I've already produced one. We'll have that for you maybe as soon as tomorrow. How about that? How about that? You ask, and we deliver. Now I'm drooling right now from thinking about
So hungry, man.
by the way, Jenny Vegas says beef fat. Oh hell no. Oh no. Oh hell yes. Jenny, don't say no. Don't say no to potato chips cooked in beef fat. There might not be anything better.
Laird, do you want to get to your Super Bowl spread?
Oh yeah. So people were asking me show what I cooked for Super Bowl, so I sent Rye a couple pictures. So I this is what I went with, Carl and Cy, and of course Rye. Those were little buffalo wings.
Okay.
I cooked them in the oven, and then of course before I could even take the picture, the group assaulted them, as you can see. But then I finished them. I put the Frank's Red Hot. Then I finished them on the flat iron grill.
You put that stuff on everything?
Exactly. You put that beep on everything.
Well, by the way, how does
Frank, a little ranch in the middle there, a little ranch swimming pool, hot tub of ranch?
How does Frank not have some sort of lifelong deal just being
David Frank? I know. Frank Red. Seriously.
Frank Red
sauce. So there's the wings. That's the wings. Do we have the other ones?
Yeah.
Let's go with the other ones. Here we go. I was a cooking fool.
Oh,
okay, what you're looking at
you.
here. Okay, look what you're looking at here. You're looking at a French bread, bread that I cut into pieces, then toasted the pieces so they were crunchy. Then I got a basil a basil spread out of the Safeway, where the produce is, the produce, and they do a little spread, and then I do a little pinch of each on each one. Then I got a fresh piece of mozzarella, fresh mozzarella with a cherry tomato on top.
Yes.
Then you sprinkle it with just some olive oil and a little balsamic vinegar, and then you just eat them.
Good stuff. That's a good hors d'oeuvre.
Very popular. Very popular. Easy to make hors d'oeuvre. And here's the third one. This takes a little bit more time.
Okay.
I stole this from Ina Garten.
Ooh.
Those are popovers that didn't quite pop all the way over with that are cooked with butter, eggs, and thyme.
Yes.
A little thyme, little butter, little eggs, kind of a savory muffin. Not a lot of salt, just like a half a teaspoon of salt in the entire thing. They're kind of bland, but if you like thyme, the spiced thyme, very, very good.
TYME, baby.
There you go. That was part of the extravaganza. And then we also went like spaghetti and meatballs. I did the whole spaghetti and meatballs.
Oh yeah. Give me some of that.
Were you guys hurting it all this morning? Not even I didn't have a sip of alcohol, but just the food consumption was just dangerous.
After the what'd you guys engulf on Super Bowl Sunday?
Detroit style pizza. That's what I had, a whole one.
Ooh.
A whole big pizza.
What's that? What's it from? Or where's it from?
Costco. I got them from Costco. They're so good, man. The Costco ones are solid.
Pepperoni one, the 3 different kinds of pepperoni.
Exactly. Meat. Yeah. Just a Krueg show style pizza, man.
Oh, it's a monster. Sometimes I'll even throw some extra mozzarella on top of that. It's crazy.
I went to a place that had a chili cook-off as a part of their festivities. And so they had vegetarian, spicy, and regular hearty chili. Oh my God. To die for.
Rye, what did you engulf?
Ooh, I made a bad move because I was hoping to go
host, or did you go on the road?
Oh, I just used what was in the fridge, which apparently included moldy tortilla from earlier that I was talking about. So I missed.
I ate mold. So you missed it. He ate mold.
Which, by the way, are any of you guys watching Last of Us on HBO?
I haven't seen the new one yet. So
okay.
Yes.
But so that was the first thing I was thinking is like now, because that show's so goddamn good. Now I'm just like that freaky beginning when he's talking about like the fungi and stuff growing inside you and turning you into a zombie. And I was like, oh God, that would suck. Right as the NBA season's really picking up.
Repeat the story. What'd you do? Like you ate too much, or what happened?
Oh no. So today, I honestly. Okay, I'll take this story to its full completion because I actually was a fat ass again today.
Right.
So
back to back, Super Bowl Monday.
Super Bowl Monday. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be healthy today. And so I went and I got some, I went to Whole Foods. I got some, like a big bag of frozen salmons. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to start eating these salmons, man. I've not had them. Yeah. So I made just
a plural of salmon is salmon, but go ahead.
Yeah. There's like 14 salmons in it. So you freeze.
No.
Pretty
That's
good.
Gone salmons, but this salmon is plural, but go ahead.
So this was me being healthy with salmon. So I barbecued 2 of them, of course. I had to put a little bit of different seasonings on both. I wasn't quite sure if
Do you like salmon? I mean, this is a favorite food of yours? Okay.
Not a favorite food at all. I'm just like, that is healthy, right? Like eating salmon.
Yeah, it is good.
So I was like, okay, this is the start of my diet. I'm just going to eat a lot of salmon. I barbecued 2 salmons, and then I made like a crap ton of just like Brussels sprouts and sweet potatoes and carrots in the oven. Brussels sprouts, by the way, I feel like their PR agent needs to just be, I mean, that guy should be running things because the Brussels sprouts growing up, I'm sure for your guys' childhoods, like I always thought that was the grossest thing ever.
My wife I still think they're gross.
Well, but
no, right. I went to a place on Saturday in Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Cheesesteak Factory.
Yes.
Brussels sprouts. Roasted.
They smell like ass.
Oh my God.
You get them at they serve them at like every gastropub now. Like they're basically like
right.
They put bacon.
It's like poppers or whatever. They're like jalapeno poppers now.
they're like fried with bacon and just all
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah, seriously. You fry anything with bacon and you could pop it in your mouth.
Maybe
right?
a little like maple syrup glaze or something, and just dunked in ranch or whatever. But anyway, so I did that. Ate all of that, and then I was like, damn, you know what? I'm still pretty hungry. And also at Whole Foods, I felt really impulsively. I don't know what brought it upon me, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to make my own salsa. And every once in a while, I like to just kick the heat up to just a dangerous amount, and I'll just go get just like a bunch of habaneros and just make my own salsa. So I made I got a full pineapple and a full like a bunch of habaneros, and I just threw that in a blender with some onion.
Like, no,
I know with some onion and just like a little bit of salt, and everyone. My dad used to like makes this for me, and I always love it. The first time I'm really making it for myself, but yeah. Anyway, so I was like, I gotta be able to try this salsa. Like I just made a bunch of salsa, and it's in the fridge and it hasn't even been tried, and I didn't have any tortilla chips, so I was like, damn, do I really just make a big fat quesadilla and just dunk it in? And I was like, of course. And so I did. And then after I ate it, then I went into my fridge. I forgot to mention, the lights were off in the kitchen. So because it's just the TV lights, I don't know. My dad's place doesn't really have a lot of light. Yeah, whatever. And I kind of know what I'm doing in the kitchen. But anyway, so I cooked that up and I put everything away. And then as I'm going in the fridge light illuminates through the tortillas, showing they are just covered in mold from everywhere. Like there's just simply no way that I didn't just ingest a lot.
Oh my god.
So yeah, I did that today.
You did that. How do you feel now?
Super Bowl. I actually don't feel that bad. But
hey, Cyrus,
that's like the grossest thing I've heard since my buddy chugged chew spit at off of came in and thought he was taking some guy's beer, and he's like, I'm like, dude, that's chew spit.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh, and then yesterday,
nothing worse than chewing. Taking a drink of somebody else's Copenhagen.
I've seen someone do that. It's messed up. That's messed up.
I do a little bit of that, like getting
that ruin your night or what? Can't unhear that.
Oof.
All right, I got a question for you.
I forgot to say though, I also after I had my meal yesterday that we talked about, I just had a big giant plate of nachos just way too early. And then it just gave me such a stomachache. And then I was just like, I was still like mentally hungry, but my body physically couldn't adjust to food. So then after the stream, I was like, you know what? My dad is away on a business golf trip. There's no one that's here to judge me. So I just made a full pizza and ate it. And then I went to bed.
Then you went to bed.
And then I went to bed.
It is amazing when you younger people, you won't be doing that in 10 years. I'll tell you that.
No.
Exactly. Yes.
I did an interview Gilbert Arenas' rookie year, and I was on KMBR, and they're like, Ray Ritter, the great Ray Ritter, got me Gilbert. He's like, you want Gilbert? I'm like, yeah. He's like, he's in his hotel room. He said, give him a call. I'm like, all right. So we call him. Gilbert, hey, we get him on. I go in the control room, talk to him for a minute. I'm like, so, hey, what are you doing, man? He's like, oh, yeah, I just got back from the game, and, I'm just going to play some video games, and I got a half gallon of Rocky Road. And I go, oh, I love Rocky Road. I go, can we talk about this on the air? He's like, oh, hell yeah. So we get on the air. Hey, Gilbert Arenas joins us. They played at the Cap Center tonight, whatever, Gilbert joins us from the Greenbelt Marriott in Greenbelt, Maryland. Gilbert, how you doing, man? Oh, thanks for having me on the show. I'm like, yeah. So what are you doing tonight? He's like, oh, just my regular routine after games. I'm like, what's your regular routine? He's like, well, if I'm not going out or whatever, I like to play video games, get a half gallon of Rocky Road, and then eat all that, and then just crash.
Half gallon. That's a lot.
A half gallon.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Of Rocky Road ice cream, and then crash. I said, Gilbert, if I did that one time, that would be my final night. That'd be my final crash.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
That's like my girlfriend's not there. Like when I was living in LA, like my girlfriend wasn't there. It's just like, I'm literally just not going to shower, and I'm going to play video games, and I'm going to eat just something just heinous.
But I mean, that ice cream is so rich.
Yeah.
Late at night, and then you're crashing. I mean, that's just like,
that's
wow.
tough. That's got to be a workout in the morning. That's a monster workout in the morning to get that off.
Yeah.
That's at least 1,500 calories, man. Are you kidding me?
I heard TJ Watt's favorite like post game meal is just to crush just an insane amount of pizza. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, these guys that look like TJ Watt or like Nick Bosa, it's like,
right.
Their muscles need the food, need the
just
they
goes
get
to their
replenished.
oh no, is it showing them my 6-pack?
Yeah. Hey, there was so much talk in the last 10 days, and I haven't talked to Carl in a while about LeBron and how LeBron passed Kareem, where he sits. There's so many funny videos. Have you guys seen the video of the guys that are like, they're constantly fighting over LeBron versus Jordan. They're in the barbershop. Did you see the one with the
Yes, I saw it again today.
Guy's like, I gotta go right now. My wife's calling or whatever. And he's like, what did you say? Wait, the guy's like, he's like, well, LeBron's the king or LeBron's the best. And he's like, after Jordan.
Honey,
you see
tell my wife you're gonna name the baby LeBronda. I'll be home later.
Just awesome. I just love this national. This is one of the best basketball conversations, I think, and I want to have it with you guys because all you guys have your own, passions and thoughts on this topic. Where are you? Okay, so where are you with LeBron passing Kareem? As far as people don't even mention that if Kareem came straight out of high school, he would have still had this record for another like 3 years or something like that. It's some ridiculous amount of time. But where are you with LeBron? Where does he rank? Do you put him in a different category than Jordan? I can't put him over Jordan. I put him always behind Jordan. But I do recognize he's an all-timer. To me, I guess the most amazing thing about LeBron is really not anything about LeBron. It's about his longevity. Carl, known LeBron. I don't know if Cy or Ryan knows this, but Carl was basically running the streets, the Oakland Soldiers. That was LeBron's AAU team. So before he ever played 1 minute in the NBA, Carl had a full, relationship with him as a younger man. Where do you put LeBron in the all-time greats?
And it's a funny conversation because everybody, I want to say probably about 8 to 10 years ago, this whole thing of the GOAT became big, right? Who's the GOAT in baseball? Who's the GOAT in football? Who's the GOAT in basketball? The challenge with GOAT discussions is that GOAT discussions are impossible to leverage with eras because the rules are so different. So then it becomes two other questions. Who's the most dominant player you've seen? And who's the best winner you've seen? So when I look at it, it's impossible for you to not say that LeBron James has had one of the 2 or 3 best careers in NBA history. Only Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and potentially Michael Jordan could be in that discussion. You could put, Magic Johnson potentially in it, but Magic's career got cut a little short. NBA guys weren't trying to play for 20 years unless they were a center back in the 80s and 90s. So it's kind of hard to kind of equate it. And people forget that Michael Jordan walked away from the NBA at the prime of his powers and left the league. That's at least another 4,500 points. That's at least potentially one more championship, one more or 2 more NBA All-Star games, maybe 1 more MVP. So you can't look at the accolades. You have to look at the winning equation as the second part. So I've got LeBron in my top 2 for career achievements with Kareem. And then when it comes to most dominant player, I have a tough time not saying Michael Jordan, but I don't have a problem with anybody that says LeBron. And I wouldn't have a problem with somebody who said Magic Johnson. And if they're older than 70, I wouldn't have a problem if they said Bill Russell or Wilt, because the rules are so different, man. Because Isaiah Thomas made a comment recently talking to Stephen A. Smith, where he apparently said, and I saw it today, and I won't say absolutely because I didn't hear him say it, that Stephen Curry might only average 18 points if he played in their era. Now, some people might hear that and say that that's absurd. But the reality is, let's say that Steph averaged 21 points a game in that era. That would make Steph one of the greatest guards in that era because guards very rarely were scoring more than 23, 24 points a game because the aggregate scores weren't as high. So there's just so many different equations. I will say this. If you put Michael Jordan in today's game, Michael Jordan would average over 45 points a game.
Agreed.
It's not even
I will
Agreed.
give Steph this, though, is that although he does get the benefit of it, he also created a lot of what led to what eventually became the benefit of it.
But you have to think of it this way too as well. And these are where, when you have your quantitative discussions, some of the quality can come out. Steph Curry, if you put Steph in another era, Steph has the ability to do things nobody else does because he can shoot
Exactly.
35 to 40 feet.
Exactly.
So you can tell me how physical the game is, but you can't be physical 35, 40 feet from the basket.
Oh, if you watch those games, the entire team is posted inside. That's the entire game is defending it would actually be a joke. He might shoot 59% from three.
But then you have to add one other thing to the equation, which is the way a coach coached. So if I'm asking you to play a certain way and you don't play that way, maybe you don't become the guy that you have to become until you find a coach who'll play your style of basketball. So you remember a guy by the name of Cotton Fitzsimmons?
Yeah.
Cotton Fitzsimmons went and got a guy who was sitting on the bench in Cleveland by the name of Kevin Johnson and brought him to Phoenix, put a system in place that allowed Kevin Johnson to become a 20 and 10 guy like 3 or 4 times. I mean, how Kevin Johnson is not in the Hall of Fame is beneath me, but that's a whole different discussion. So
maybe one of the fastest baseline to baseline point guards ever.
Eras, it's about style of play, and it's about rules. But one thing we know for sure, great players, a Steph Curry, a Kobe Bryant, an Akeem Olajuwon, Rick Barry, the Dr. J's, the Oscar Robertsons, the Jerry West, you could put them in any era and they would be special because they want to be great. I heard Giannis say this today, and I actually heard this. Giannis said the NBA is not about skill. He says everybody thinks that I'm going to become so skilled and that's why I'm going to be so good in the NBA. He said the NBA is about obsession. How obsessed will you be at outworking other people to be excellent? And when you look at the great players, LeBron, you look at Larry Bird, you look at Kobe, you look at any of those guys, Oscar Robertson still believes he's the greatest player to ever play.
He does. That's crazy.
And it's not crazy because guess what?
Average a triple-double.
Of a guy who played in an era, he was so much more dominant than anybody who could guard him.
How about Elgin Baylor?
Elgin Baylor was the guy averaged 39 and 19, and he finished 4th in the MVP voting in 1961.
Wait, what era or what year did you say was the year when Steph would average 18?
No, it wasn't me. It was Isaiah Thomas was talking to Stephen A. Smith, and they were just talking about how the numbers might be different.
The original
and let's just
Isaiah,
say this.
not the Celtics Isaiah.
But like in what
he's talking, that would be in the
80s.
late 80s.
Because the 80s were like historically like a boom for points.
The early and mid 80s were, but when you got to the later 80s and early 90s, you had the
brawl half-court
Pistons
game,
and you had the New York Knicks that all became these physical, beat you up, post you up, double pose with. Remember the Knicks starting forwards next to Pat
Mason
Ewing,
and Oakley,
Anthony Mason and Charles Oakley.
See, my only place where I'm lost in this is like in my mind, like I'm not putting Steph like back before he knew, like when I'm doing these hypotheticals, I'm not like saying that he would all of a sudden have everything erased and like wouldn't know how to play this style of basketball back then. That's just the way I'm thinking about it. Just because
he clearly would be able to, because he's a great player. Steph could play the game like Steve Nash plays. He could be a table-setting point guard, and he'd be one of the top 10 point guards to ever play if he played in that era, because that's just how smart of a basketball player he is. Most people think of Steph, and they think of Steph as a great shooter. The first thing I think of when I think of Steph is a ridiculously great scorer who happens to be a ridiculously great shooter.
Agreed.
Because he has an amazing appetite to score,
And
which is
an
why he's so
array of
creative
shots.
at doing it.
Yeah, I'm like thinking like he would break, like think about it from a coaching perspective. Like he might have actually just changed the game right then and there. For all we know, like all of these teams with all of these guys inside, all these big guys, like what are they going to do if he's just stroking 3 after 3 after 3 after 3? Like they're going to have to
Let
change.
me ask you a question. Are you familiar with Dick Motta?
No.
He's a little bit
former
before
coach
your
of the
time.
Kings.
He was the first coach that Jason Kidd played for coming out of Cal.
Mavericks, yeah.
And at that time, I was working for Jason Kidd. Would go to practices. The backup point guard was a guy by the name of Derek Harper, who was an outstanding player for the Mavericks and then went to the Knicks.
He was.
Great guard.
He was.
Dick Motta made Jason Kidd play slow down basketball. And then they replaced him as a coach. And the new coach said, hey, forget that. Let's run up and down the floor. So a lot of it, Ryan, would be predicated on how the coaches play. You couldn't tell Bill Fitch, hey, I'm going to play the way I want to play, because that's just not how basketball was played back then. And the beauty of the game today is that you have some amazing minds that work in the front offices and that work in the league office who have helped to nurture a style of play and created rules to support that so that the game can be more free and more free-willing and those kinds of things. And so some of what Isaiah was saying was not a knock. It wasn't a knock on Steph at all. It was saying in our era, you would have had to do different things or else you couldn't comply. And that's really a question where the GOAT conversation doesn't fit. Like, how do you say anybody was better than Wilt?
I think you just have to go by who is the best. Literally. Like, how good were they in comparison to their own era? And then you just go back and you scale it. That's the only way to do it and not get lost in the what if game.
Well, I mean, there's people that claim that Bob Cousy would never have played in the NBA if it were today and that kind of thing.
That's ridiculous because
it is ridiculous.
Bob Cousy would be playing AAU. Bob Cousy
and he would
go to clinics and camps.
Again, like this is I don't like playing the time machine. Like even like Larry Bird, I have no idea. I feel like I would do a dishonor to Larry Bird's legend if I even just started with how he would be in today's game. I honestly don't know. That's why I like seeing a Luka.
The one thing about Larry Bird, though, that's different, I think, than some of the others is just that Larry Bird was just a bad A. I mean, as far as he talked the most trash, what
if he grew up
in an era of awesome players
world of the modern game?
He had the biggest turnaround. I think one of the obsessions with Bird was the incredible number of games that the Celtics won his first year. And then obviously, he won 3 titles in 5 years or 6 years with Boston.
The 3 straight MVPs.
Yeah. And at some point, his back failed him, but I remember seeing him in the late 80s at Arco Arena, and he had a bad back.
Yeah.
And he was, the Kings were not, believe me, Kings were the team at that point that you rested against so you could play your full game against the Lakers on Sunday on ABC, right?
Yep.
So he shows up Friday night against the Kings, and he didn't even touch the ball. I mean, literally, he just ran up and down the floor, and he would just get these touch passes, and he'd have the ball he wouldn't take a dribble. He'd just catch it and pass it, layup to somebody else, just set up guys all night long. I think he had like 11 assists and he only played like 12 or 13 minutes. It was crazy. And it was like, wow, Larry Bird put on a clinic tonight. And I remember Grant talking about it after the game. But there's something different about Bird. So like I couldn't really.
Larry Bird
had to have lived it
Jokic or something like that, a Luka or a Jokic.
No. He'd be light years ahead of Jokic.
Agreed.
And that's not to discount Jokic. He's one of the greatest centers to ever play, super skilled. But you're talking about a guy who had no ramp up in the NBA. He brought exactly what he was in college at Indiana State to the NBA except elevated it because you get 8 more minutes of playing time. Larry Bird had a season where he averaged 30 points a game. Larry Bird would average about 33 a game, and he'd average about 12 rebounds a game, and he'd average 8 assists a game.
Well,
because just
those 80s were pretty comparable number wise. Like, I don't think that Larry Bird's numbers would go like way up or anything like that. I think he'd be like 30 a game. But yeah, I mean, like, I would like to get. That's why I'm saying, like, I can't even get lost in it because I'm just like, okay, that dude was a stud, so he definitely would figure out a way to be a stud in this, like the same level of stud in this generation.
But he also was on a great team with other great players.
Well, like
DJ was great, and Cornbread Maxwell was a hell of a player, and you know, McHale became spectacular, and Parrish fulfilled his potential, and you know, I mean, they just had a lot there. What
would happen with Magic Johnson in today's game? Because that's one thing, is there was way more up and down in the 80s because all the paint was packed, so it was fast break after fast break. So he's getting all those assists, he's getting everybody going, but he also can't really shoot like that well, right?
Yeah, he can. No, that's not true. Where do you get that from? He's a great shooter.
I thought he was like a career.
I'll say this: he developed. I mean, that's the one thing about Bird and Magic that were so incredible. They literally would go away in the summer. They'd come back. They'd have a new element to their game. Magic developed a very dependable set 3-point shot. It wasn't a jumper. He didn't come peeling off screens but his set shot, perimeter shot, became money.
I mean, he's a career 30% like guy. He had 1 year where he was 384.
You can't focus on those 3-point percentages from back then because they didn't practice it. Like, it wasn't a part of the game.
This is what I'm saying. Now we're getting lost. You get immediately lost in the what ifs,
like,
and
Jordan's was much low. Like Jordan even said it too. Like, it's like if it was a focus of our game, I'd go to practice and shoot 500 a day. They didn't do that.
You just look at this. This is what will help you, Ryan, from being a younger player and not being in that era. Look at their free throw percentages. A guy who comes in the league shooting in the high 60s, low 70s, who becomes an 80+% free throw shooter, would come in the NBA, let's say high 20s, low 30s shooting threes, and would, by the time they were in their third or fourth year, they'd be shooting 38 to 41%. And they would be taking great threes. Magic Johnson wouldn't be taking 10 of them. He'd be taking 4. So all the ones he's taking would be wide open. Versus, imagine if Steph got to shoot the same 3-pointers as even his brother, where most of the shots he's taken, other people are creating for him.
I guess I'm just taking the optimistic view that because he's such a legend and he did it like the same thing in college, that he would have gone into the NBA and completely just like changed the game, basically. In the same way that you guys are like, oh, Magic would work hard and learn how to shoot more because of the emphasis growing up. I think you can't like, even though I get it, like that you're trying to be like realistic and really, but it's just like, you get lost with that. Like what's next? Like Curry. I mean, there's going to be a lot of players that wouldn't even get to play in like the 60s or 70s or like the 60s, right? Because there wasn't that many black players. So then it's just like, oh, who would have been? It's just like, I don't know.
The one thing and this you just learn, guys who have the biggest appetites to be great tend to move towards greatness.
True.
Guys that don't have the appetite for it. And here's the other thing in today's NBA. There was no social media. There was no internet.
It's difficult.
Guys were taking regular flights. There weren't masseuses and chiropractors and acupuncturists. I mean, you're driving and you're in buses more often. So some of that stuff could take away from today's players. There was no load management. There were way more back-to-backs and 4 games and 5-night type stuff. I mean,
look at the shoes. Look at the shoes they wore.
Yeah, Rick Barry, like Rick. If you ever want to hear stories like that, just listen to any Rick Barry show. He'll at least one episode. He'll dedicate 5 to 10 minutes talking about
Chuck Taylors. Could you imagine playing an NBA game today on a show with Chuck Taylors?
He gets so bitter. Like if we have a guest on who played recently, He does not want to hear anything about the
I will
luxuries
say
of
though,
today's
go
game.
back and look at like the 80s South. Well, I guess maybe this argument works better if you were trying to do time traveling teams. Like,
Right, they never practiced shooting threes.
no,
That's
I know,
the
but
point.
I'm telling you, like, go back and watch even like those like Celtics
I
teams.
was alive for all that. What
I
about
know,
it?
I know. But like, actually, go watch on YouTube and just think like, okay, how would this work out? Like in like versus the teams today, and like who would win each different? You immediately are like, what the hell? Like everybody's packed into the paint. The players around there are just like have completely different skill sets, and like because was just the way the game.
Okay, one thing that was absolutely 100% clear is that if you had the ball in your hands as much as the great scorers have the ball in their hands, Jordan, Curry, you needed a level of strength and physical stoutness that Curry definitely didn't have coming out of Davidson. And Jordan, I mean, the whole Jordan renaissance where he took it to another level was when he adjusted to the Jordan rules by getting a lot stronger and lifting weights. And he was already a pretty sinewy, strong 6'5" guy, long arms, who was, pretty strong. But he got a lot stronger to take on that punishment. I can't think of anybody. I can think of guys that were built like Steph.
You have to give Steph the benefit of the doubt that he probably would have got bigger in order to for what was
he wouldn't have needed to.
Yeah,
well, I mean, if you knew,
look at the sizes,
it would be.
Look at the sizes, Ryan, of guards in that era.
No,
there aren't that many 6'3" guards that are weighing more than about 185 pounds.
Yeah. With like pretty low, like just like some pretty skinny arms.
I hear guys that are the older guys that say, "Oh, this guy wouldn't have made it." They're lying. They would have just taken more punishment, but they wouldn't have had a problem handling it. I played against guys at 6'2" that were 185 pounds, 190 pounds, that today's players the same height. And they weren't necessarily all strong because most of them didn't lift weights. It really comes down to how the game is going to be officiated and how the rules are going to be done. Because remember, those Laker teams with Magic Johnson were averaging 114, 115 points. The Warriors were scoring 115 plus points under Don Nelson.
But that's
what is Steph's exact height and weight? What is he?
He's 6'3", 195.
Yeah, I just pulled up a guy that I thought of because he was one of my favorite players in the NBA in the 80s. Andrew Toney. Mm-hmm. Andrew Toney, they list here at 6'3", 178 pounds.
Great player. He's a great player. Yeah.
He was an unbelievable scorer. The Boston Strangler, that's what they called
speed and like side to side lateral speed that like Steph's used to go into today. There were a lot more guards that I feel like were physical. They were physical. Like they were physical because they could kind of get away with it and whatnot, but they weren't necessarily, the same like crazy foot speed of today.
You ever see Gus Williams?
Yeah, I don't agree with the
Sonics. Archibald. I mean,
the Warriors. Gus Williams played the Warriors.
That.
I'm just saying, I when I went back and watched it, like I really was giving it like a really good long watch. I was watching like full Celtics Lakers finals.
Saw it on HD TV.
No. I mean, I watched it on YouTube, just like full Celtics.
What's your argument? I don't even know what the hell what is the argument here? What are you trying to say?
No, I'm just trying. I think that the Warriors of today would dominate the 85 Celtics.
How would they dominate them when they would have trouble getting possessions?
No,
they would not. Those teams. Who's going to guard McHale?
McHale would foul out the entire Warrior, every big man in like about 3/4 of the game with his up and unders and his he had like 19 different spinoffs.
But how would they guard like the 15-16 Warriors where if it's truly time travel and they know everything about today's modern spacing game, all of a sudden how are you playing McHale?
Here's how you play them. You give all the shots that Bogut wants, all the shots that Harrison Barnes wants. They would put their focus on
those
guys that knock down the most shots.
But what if they're just setting all those crazy screens for Steph to get him open from threes? They're not even used to guarding. They're used to guarding they're packed in the paint. If they're on like the corners,
exactly what teams do now.
They'd adapt.
Steph Curry would score 30. Clay would score 22. And they would say, hey, let's make the guys who can't beat us beat us.
And
But
also,
wouldn't they just be wetting
Dennis
threes?
Johnson wasn't Dennis Johnson like a 3 or 4 time All NBA
Oh,
defender?
he's one of the greatest defenders of all time.
Right. So I mean,
They just switch everything.
yeah.
The-
I mean,
the-
it would be. It would. I
It
will
wouldn't
say
be a
this.
problem
It
for
would be
the
awesome to watch.
Warriors to score, but they then have to defend where they don't have the. Who's going to guard Larry Bird?
You know what? They'll trade threes. Oh, Andrew. I mean, Andrew Wiggins. They'll even send help. But also, I mean,
No, Andrew Wiggins wasn't on that team.
oh, that team. Oh,
Draymond. This guy says Draymond. Woodpit says Draymond could guard McHale, but McHale. See, Draymond is. I think McHale would go right over Draymond. McHale was a 6'10" guy with his as good a length as Draymond has.
like,
I mean,
Draymond
McHale almost was like. He was like a freak with his long arms.
Draymond was a 40% 3-point shooter that year, and they honestly their entire team like could wet threes. And the Celtics they would just trade threes for twos. They'd get really wide open threes.
Here's what you forget: they have guys that can shoot threes. It's easier to take more threes.
They're not used to playing that style. They would not adapt on
Larry Bird would not have to do any adapting because Larry Bird could do what he wants.
Exactly.
Chris Ford could shoot the three. Danny Ainge could shoot the three.
But they would break. Do you think they would alter their style at all if the Warriors just started rolling down and just
not altering? It's not altering if you see that, hey, this team is knocking down open shots that are giving them an extra point. The guys that can shoot just would take a few more shots. Kevin McHale wouldn't be out there shooting threes.
They're not even used to being guarded at the 3-point line like that. Like with all that emphasis, they would definitely go inside. I feel like thinking they'd have an advantage there, and then they would.
They'd shoot 80% from the floor.
They'd trade threes for twos. I mean, Bogut was a pretty good defender.
What they would do is they'd live at the foul line too.
I mean, Bogut and Draymond Green
would have to be dealing with Robert Parrish, and Robert Parrish would just go live on the boards. My point isn't, wouldn't it be a good series? It'd be a great series. And you talk about one of the greatest NBA teams of all times in that team with the Warriors, and you talk about one of the greatest teams of all time in that team. The challenge is, what rules are you playing by?
Modern.
Why?
Because it's time travel.
No, time travel doesn't mean
I pose this whole thing time travel. We're not doing these guys all were born and then that was the Warriors team of that day.
Why wouldn't you do time travel and just take them back?
You could time travel them back, but they still know all the secrets of the future.
They know all the team. Well, there are no secrets. The basket's still 10 foot high.
I know, but they wouldn't. It's not fair for the Warriors to lose their playbook and Boston to lose, or you know what I mean.
They wouldn't lose their playbook. They would have to play
exactly that way.
They would have to play the style that they played. Have you ever seen some of the fouls that they take? Do you know how much baiting Larry Bird would do? Trash talking, trying to get guys out of their games.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but I have a lot of respect for that Warriors team. Like that was an all-time great Warriors team.
It would be an amazing series.
I'm just saying, if you go back and watch it, you're going to be like, oh.
No. I don't have to go back and watch. One, I do. And two, I don't have to go back and watch because I know what basketball looks like. Because the basket is still the same height.
I know it's the same height, but not if you're trading threes for twos. Like, okay, either that or Parrish or McHale have to get off the floor.
But Brian, you're acting like the three percentage is the same as the 2%. Like a 2%.
Wide open threes. If they're not used to guarding this crazy, the entire team's packed in the paint.
When would a defensive guard see a guy? One of my best friends, one of the greatest shooters I've ever seen, Ken Carter. They did the movie Coach Carter on Ken.
I just saw it 3 nights ago.
He can shoot from 35, 40
really
feet
good.
Still today in his 60s. If you're guarding him when you come in the gym, guess what? You know the scouting report. Hey, they're going to screen high. You make adjustments. That's playing basketball.
They've literally never seen it before. They've never seen that before.
No. It's not they've never seen it. There just weren't many guys doing it.
But
Monty Powell shot the ball from 27 feet.
I'm just saying their defense is, if you watch the games, their defense is packed inside the paint.
Correct. If that's where the offensive players are, that's where you're going to guard.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a team you're talking about Celtics, Lakers, and you're talking about a team that had trying to defend Kareem. That's
let me
really what
just
you're
let me say,
watching.
I talk about this with Rick Barry all the time. Like Rick's brought this up.
Yeah, what does Rick say about
And
this?
he says I would have adjusted in like a second. He's like,
of course.
Like it's absurd to think that like just like this system now is some magical thing that will take us like years to figure out. He's like no, it's just all they're doing is shooting.
Maybe after a couple games in the series, not just for one.
No. Ryan, here's what you're forgetting.
What?
I would have tape on how you play. I'm a coach.
You're
going to design a defense to play against how you play.
You are the 85-86 Celtics. You're the baddest team out there. You go up against that crazy team with Magic Johnson. You got all this swag. You're going to go into a series and see scout a team like that. First of all, you'll probably laugh. Secondly, there's no way you alter your game plan completely.
Here's why I wouldn't laugh.
Our stuff.
Here's why I wouldn't laugh. Because you didn't see the 85 Nuggets.
Yeah, who went up and
85
down.
Nuggets spread the floor, shot a lot of jump shots, and didn't play outside or inside out. They played outside in.
We're not talking about like the Houston Rockets of a couple years ago. We're talking about
the
80s Nuggets.
The Doug Moe Nuggets.
Curry and Klay Thompson, man. Like that's different. That was an all-time
They would play great in the series. But my great guys would play great too. How much do you think Klay Thompson would average in that series?
A lot.
And who would guard Bird, by the way?
Your number.
I'd say that Klay Thompson would average 29.
Okay, let's say he averages 29. How many is Steph averaging in that series?
Honestly, 40.
Why is he averaging 40 then, but he might average 35 now?
Because people guard him out to the three-point line, double team him the entire time.
You're treating this as if a basketball player would not say, I got to guard a guy where he's capable of shooting when I'm looking at him.
They didn't have the physical attributes in order to do that.
What physical attributes do I need?
When I'm watching these guys, I'm like, okay, that guy's not chasing around Steph Curry, man. Like, okay, maybe, like for we're talking Scottie Pippen. Oh, hell yes.
Why?
Yes.
Why would it be different for Scottie than it would be for Dennis Johnson?
Or Alvin Robertson or any of the awesome
Dennis Johnson
looks
like he's balding, and so he looks unique and old.
TR Dunn. Great defenders are going to do what they have to do to guard you. But let's just say he averages 40 and Klay averages 29. Who's their third leading scorer going to be?
Maybe Harrison Barnes, honestly.
And what's he going to average in that series?
Probably like 22.
Why would he go from averaging 15 to 22?
Because they all would just be whipping it around shooting threes.
Oh, no. It would not be some great difference of Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes would be about the same. He's only going to get the same number of shots.
No, there was more shots taken in the 80s.
No. And that's my point. He's not going to be getting more shots. He's going to shoot the shots he gets. Now, how much do you think Larry Bird averages in that series?
Ooh.
15.
I mean, I'm trying to think who's on him. I mean, probably like 32.
32. He'd average 40. Who's going to guard him? Harrison Barnes?
I mean, I think
no disrespect to Harrison, but he's not going to keep Larry from getting 40.
I mean, just their entire team. Like it's Draymond. I mean, Klay Thompson was a phenomenal defender at that point.
Great defender. He might be guarding one of the guards.
I mean, hell,
he's not guarding Kevin McHale.
Iguodala.
He's going to guard Robert Parrish.
No. I'm saying Iguodala would guard Larry Bird.
The Warriors would have the Celtics.
Great players
such a
is still going
size
to be
advantage.
great, man.
You got to remember this about the Celtics: 7'1" Parrish, 6'10" ridiculous length McHale, 6'9" Bird. So I mean that was their front line.
Shooting guard that year.
6'9", 6'10", 7'1".
You say tall, I hear slow.
Skilled though, and you know what they also did? They went possession by possession,
and they're more skilled then. More skilled than now, because now
size
more skilled
then.
Absolutely, because now all everyone does is just shoot threes.
What skills are you talking about? That's
mid-range
discussion point.
See, there was a lot more mid-range that went down. See, you would see. Here's one thing that you would see in the 80s: that possession of the ball and scoring back and forth. I mean, these teams matched each other many times. There's so many wasted possessions in a finals game now compared to the 80s. And I just think that the 80s teams could score at not at will, but I mean, like, I'll give you a key guy on the Pistons in the late 80s was James Edwards. And you say, what? How could James? No, because James Edwards was their 7-1 back to the basket scorer. And even though they had Hall of Famers on that team and Rodman and, Isaiah, Vinnie Johnson and other, I mean, they had some great players on the Dumars. They still went into the low block for James Edwards when they needed big fourth quarter, you got to have it sequences. So, and those guys made it at a really high clip compared to what you typically see from any kind of interior player today. I mean, that was my recollection of it.
Here's the other thing to take into consideration. That Warrior team, Rye, could potentially win that series. They're that good. But you notice how you took the team that won 73 regular season games to use? Now take a team that isn't at that same level. Let's say the Miami Heat team that played the Lakers in the bubble with Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler. Very good team.
They would murder him.
That's the point. If you're talking about the greatest teams of all time, the Laker teams of the mid 80s, like 84 to about 87, those Celtics teams in the early to mid 80s, those Sixer teams in the early 80s to the late mid 80s, those Detroit teams in the late 80s and early 90s, those Bull teams of the 90s, those teams and the Warriors and the Cavaliers with LeBron, those would be wars. But if you take some of the teams that are just slightly below that, and they had to go up against those top teams, it doesn't matter if they're shooting threes because everybody doesn't have Steph and Clay because they're not just great shooters. There are other guys that can shoot a high percentage, but they're ridiculous shot makers in the clutch. But we also know in some of those same series, you could see a 3 to 5 minute gap of consistent scoring because there's more three-point shooting, which means more misses, versus a team that's playing the 2-point game and playing it highly effectively, living on the old boards, getting to the foul line, slowing the game down, being real physical. That could wear you down. That's the beauty of the eras. It's hard to judge, but don't discount the older era because a lot of it does have to do with how the game is officiated. Imagine going into the hot box of the Boston Celtics arena when they're not turning on the showers.
Good call.
And they're messing up the floor and they're doing all this stuff. I mean, there was a lot of dirty stuff that they don't have in TD Garden. TD Garden's a beautiful place to play. But the old parquet floor, that was an advantage.
Are we playing in this hypothetical? Are we playing it where like it's all their stuff is crappy and then you go to the Warriors facility and it's just really nice?
Hey, well,
what is
playing then in Oracle?
It begs this question: what's the greatest era? If you said this, the greatest era of the NBA, have you ever had this question with Rick? Have you ever broached this? What is the greatest era? If you said the NBA at its greatest point,
I will ask him on the next show.
Years. Carl, what do you think?
I would say somewhere between 1982 to about 1988, because there were so many franchises that were really good and deep. Like those Milwaukee teams with Marcus Johnson and Brian Winters and
Sidney Moncrief.
That group, Sidney Moncrief, those were super talented teams, but they couldn't get to the finals. Today's era, who's the best team in today's era?
Oh, I couldn't even. I don't even know. Maybe the Celtics. The Celtics right now.
And here's the other thing.
Wait, the Celtics right now are the best team of the era? No. I would say
champions.
I would say the Warriors with KD were the best team of the era.
By far.
The beauty of the Warriors is the Warriors, outside of adding KD, have been a pretty consistent group of their core with a few mixed pieces in that they add in that are easier to blend. Hey, we got a JaVale McGee this year. Hey, this year we got a Bogut. Hey, this year we got a Zaza. versus those teams were really consistent over time, and there wasn't as much of the team hopping of the best players. So you had to kind of grind it out to kind of get there. That's the other thing about those eras. It was a lot harder to build this super team because you had to wait until guys kind of developed, and maybe you found you an old vet like a Bill Walton who could become a role player on your team who used to be a star in another franchise. So all those things are in there. See, I agree with you. Today's era, the greatest teams could compete with the greatest teams ever. It would just be a matter of who could dictate the pace and style of the game. Because what else happens in a playoff series? Guys shoot really well in games 1 through 3. And when you get to about game 3 and game 4, all of a sudden shooting percentages start doing what? Dropping. Scores, even of these teams with all these three-point shooters, starts going down because now I've played you 2 to 3 times. We've scouted. We figured out how we want to play you, because those big teams would just top lock. They'd say, hey, let's take away the 3 and make them play inside the 3-point line. They don't want to do it, so maybe we can get them to take more bad shots. It like the Lakers did the other night against the Warriors. Hey, let's take that away to force them to do stuff they don't want to do. Can they do it? Of course they can. Will they do it? Those are always questions. So that's
how awesome would it be to see the team of the 60s, the team of the 70s, the team of the 80s, the team of the 90s, the team of the 2000s, the team of the 2010s, and now the team of the 2020s in like a tournament.
Wow.
Where you could take the best of that decade.
That is wow.
Just, you know,
I think it'd be the Jordan Bulls and the KD Warriors.
I don't know, man. There were some individual dudes in the 70s. I mean, I'm old enough to remember some of those mid to late 70s All-Star
like Artist
games.
Gilmore, like those kind of guys.
I'm thinking of like George Gervin.
Oh yeah, Iceman, yeah.
George Gervin and Rick.
You guys
and just these stone cold scorers, and these guys that had just an array of moves that were just, there was a lot more signature moves, it seems like, back in that.
I mean, you guys honestly should have a bone to gripe with 2K, because Kevin F brings this up. You can play as all the old teams and all the greatest players ever on 2K, and somehow even like with like putting like a Magic Johnson or something like that 99, it's like he's just still is like pretty hard to play with. And like it's just like you could, like, if you're like the Warriors versus one of those teams and you're playing your buddy, like you just know you're gonna win by like a zillion, and you can do anything you want.
And I wonder why, because the software is designed to do certain things. Here would be the question. If you took a Rick Barry out of his era, 60s, 70s, a little bit of the 80s, and you allowed him to do side steps, you allowed him to do Euro steps, which were illegal back then. You allowed guys, instead of dribbling with their hand on top, now I can put my hand under it and I can hesitate and cross over.
Right.
Those are all the nuances that no one talks about.
I guess that's true, but then I just like, how far do you go? Is like all of a sudden are we saying, well, I don't know, Jordan did it when there wasn't social media and he wasn't the chosen.
No. Michael Jordan had some of the best footwork ever, and to be honest, Michael Jordan wasn't that great of a dribbler. Michael Jordan was just explosively quick.
He was good dribbling, though. He was good. I mean,
Michael Jordan was not a fancy dribbler.
Imagine
point A to point B.
Imagine if Michael Jordan. Obviously, I think Jordan definitely way better than LeBron. Actually, not way better, but Jordan better than LeBron. I have Jordan 1, LeBron 2, but I will say this. I don't know. You put Jordan in LeBron's shoes to start LeBron's career. Just the fact of like where he came, and this is why I have him. I can't get there with LeBron as like the best player ever. Is like, I honestly, like when you watch like, and you're a great person to speak on this, Carl, because you saw him when he was younger. But like even when I watched that More Than a Game documentary, or what the documentary he did when he was in high school, it was like, holy crap, this is unbelievable. Like, I'm such a LeBron fan. This is such an amazing story, and like, look at this guy. I just feel like LeBron was always meant to be a little bit more of a distributor, and just like I feel like that's his true basketball self is distributing the basketball. I honestly think all of the like crap about Jordan and living up to Jordan and him blowing it in finals and all this stuff finally got to his head. And like when he went to the Cavs, he kind of turned into a little bit of like a kind of like a James Harden light in some ways, where it was like either LeBron's going to have a great game and they're going to win, or like if LeBron doesn't have, the best game ever because he's controlling the ball the whole time, then they're definitely going to lose. And I just didn't really, I just never felt like that was like his true basketball self, if that makes any sense.
Jordan was more of a killer.
And Jordan
was much more of a absolute killer on both ends of the floor. He was the better scorer. He was the better defender. The thing that I saw this week that I thought was interesting is there's an entire Hall of Fame career that separates LeBron and Jordan.
I was gonna. That's what I was going to read off to you.
2 more Finals MVPs, 1 more Defensive Player of the Year award, 1 more regular season MVP, 4 all defensive first team nods, and 9 extra scoring titles and 3 steals titles. If you just took the 9 scoring titles and the 4 all defensive first teams alone,
Hall of Famer,
that would make Jordan considerably over LeBron. It's just amazing how we have in these debates. There's the one part that's undoubted is that we have a recency bias. Why? Because it's kind of a selfish thing. It's like we want to believe that what we're watching today is the greatest, and that we advance in society, and we always go, and we do generally advance, but it's not lineal. It's not a straight line.
I'm going to stop you there.
You have some guys who are great, and then you know what I mean. So, but that's where I'd say Jordan. I love LeBron. LeBron is a distributor, but I would say LeBron. It's not a good comparison.
So was Jordan. Jordan distributed to
Kobe
Paxson.
was the better Jordan.
Jordan distributed to Paxson. Jordan distributed to Steve Kerr and won 2 titles from those distributions. So I think he was a fine distributor. And as a ball handler, I don't remember him ever getting his pocket picked.
But he just means he wasn't
a lot.
He wasn't a guy that dribbled in and out of traffic with all kinds of fancy dribbling. He dribbled straight lines, basically.
Michael Jordan, the reason why I'll always say he's the GOAT, and that whatever that you're right, Carl. That term was never used until like 15 years ago.
Now it's used in multiples, which doesn't even make sense logically.
But it doesn't. But we always. But regardless, if you had to if someone put a gun to your head and said, "Who are you going to pick to shoot a shot that's going to save your life?" I think Jordan's going to be everyone's pick. LeBron is such an. I focus on the psychological part of it. LeBron has insecurities that Jordan scoffs at. The scoring thing,
the insecurities.
He does. I mean, like
I know. It's part of him not being he never fully actualized. I feel like
he just the other day came out and said again that he thinks he's the greatest ever. And it's like, why do you have to say that? Like,
that was that's what I wanted to ask Carl about. What did you think of LeBron stating that he's the greatest ever? That almost is kind of like when you're, it's like when you're really on top, you don't need to say it.
Well, but see, that once again can be the chess versus the checkers, because Mike is also very polished with how he answers that question.
I got to stop you there with the chess versus checkers, though. LeBron, I get that he's calculated and he does do some stuff that's smart, but he also is like, I get the feeling that he thinks he's playing this great chess match at times that none of us can see that he's clearly, obviously doing. And it's like, dude, why are you reading The Godfather like 5 times, never actually reading it, and then getting caught reading it upside down, and then talking about all this stuff with you? And it's just like, there's just too many things. And he thinks that he's like coming off in this way. And so
think of this, the analysis paralysis that goes on today. If that would have gone on in other generations, I mean, can you imagine Wilt Chamberlain's life being social media capable of being seen?
Oh my God, he'd be
I saw Wilt.
Every Kardashian.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean,
Wilt was prolific.
To operate in today's time and to be problemless, to be able to handle yourself, to manage a family in this era with all the crap that goes on, man, It's tough, man.
Last
Today's
one.
athletes are under such scrutiny.
He's a real one for that.
Last one, guys. Let's finish with this because I want to finish with this. And we got to get on with our night because Carl's got probably a big day tomorrow, and the rest of us have lesser of days.
Embrace
But let's go with this one. And you mentioned it earlier in the stream. I saw you told me a long time ago, go check this out. I feel embarrassed that I didn't see it forever, but I saw the Coach Carter movie just like last week or
I haven't
within
seen
the
it
last
yet.
5
Well,
days.
What?
And
Yeah, I
I
haven't seen it yet.
love it. I mean, seriously, I'm going to go watch it again. I like it that much. I love Samuel. Is it? Samuel Jackson, right?
Samuel L.
Is it
Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. He was phenomenal, and he was really good. But I wanted to ask you guys, let's go around the room here. If you could watch, let's say you've got 5 hours of free time, and you've got every streaming service known to man. So basically, you can have everything that there's out there in the public domain, and you can watch hours and hours and hours on basketball. Anything from a documentary like Hoop Dreams to a movie like Coach Carter to Glory with about Don Haskins and that's a damn good movie, basketball movie, to the new one out on with
Ben Affleck,
Queen Latifah and Adam Sandler. What was that called? He's the basketball scout who finds that guy Cruz.
Handler.
Really good movie. I saw it this year.
I forgot the name though, but yeah, he's an agent.
Or you could watch any basketball hour retrospective, or you could watch the Dream Team special. You can watch the Lakers Celtics trilogy of 30 for 30s. Give me your basketball. Like, if you want to watch basketball movies or media, what do you non-reality games? We're talking about movies.
Just one?
Yeah, just or just no, it doesn't be one. What are your favorite basketball movies?
It's easy for me.
Semi-pro.
Oh, I love semi-pro. That's great.
I've got 2. Carl, do you want to go first?
Well, I have to say Coach Carter, because one, I know the story and was involved in kind of the development of the story.
Nice.
If there's a second one,
did you make money?
I can't lie. He got game.
He got game. Okay.
Jesus Shuttlesworth.
Ray Allen.
Jesus Shuttlesworth, man. That there were so many, and Rick Fox's character in that movie was just outstanding.
I would say that growing up and into probably college, when I was still playing basketball, it was loving basketball. Honestly, just a great movie, great romance, just a truly great movie. And also what is great is that Omar Epps is like believable as that player. And then
Lathan, baby.
Yeah, baby. And then once I think there was that great Maxwell song too. That was just like you'd be really embarrassed if you were playing it on the radio and you saw someone like roll up to the window, but it's really good. But then I moved on to now it's White Men Can't Jump. Even though Woody's
a classic.
Yeah, it's
Rosie Perez is a sleeper.
Yeah,
Woody
Perez.
I thought played his butt off in that. It was tough for me to watch Wesley. Wesley
he apparently
looked like a real hooper.
He never picked up a basketball before that. There's so.
Oh, by the way, just so Carl, I don't know if you ever see this. If you ever want to see the worst basketball ever played on screen, they did an episode of Baywatch where we were supposed to believe that David Hasselhoff and his partner somehow played 2-on-2 and beat guys like in Venice Beach. And they tried to make it so like David Hasselhoff and his partner won. They probably took them 10 days to film this thing. These guys were the worst looking shooters I've ever seen. If you ever see the Baywatch where David Hasselhoff plays basketball,
love it.
Unbelievably entertainingly bad.
Another sleeper, White Shadow.
White Shadow.
Ken
that
Howard.
was a TV show.
Yeah. Yes.
From the 80s,
I'll tell you
right?
what, one of the worst of all time is Uncle Drew. Uncle Drew is unwatchable. When
I was a young,
I watched it because a number of the guys from our AAU program were in it.
Okay, I found that unwatchable.
More Than a Game is freaking good. That is worth revisiting. More Than a Game. the LeBron doc is actually so good.
You know what I really liked? I really liked the Dream Team Netflix.
They made two.
Where they went to Barcelona.
I watched it last week.
From the
that
Dream
was
Team.
so good. That was so good on the newer on the Redeem Team.
Redeem Team.
Yes.
Good.
So
I'll tell
good.
you also what I enjoyed the other night was the Jermaine O'Neal, Ron Artest, Malice in the Palace documentary.
Yes.
On what channel? Or where do you find that?
It's on, I think, is it Netflix?
Yeah, it's
Might
like
be Netflix.
It's not 30 for 30. It's like on Netflix Untold Stories or something like that. Like it's like almost like an episode that is a documentary.
And then 30 for 30 on the Bad Boy Pistons is damn good.
Yeah,
damn good.
Damn good.
I love the Winning Time one, but now that like I can't even imagine. I just want there to be like a Winning Time, but on like so many steroids for Curry. Like just
How about Blue Chips?
Blue Chips is great.
That's a good, yeah, I like that movie. Yeah,
With Nick
Another
Nolte and
sleeper.
Shaq.
and Penny. Yeah,
Very good.
Okay,
Penny was excellent in it.
Where are you with Hoosiers?
Hoosiers is one of those movies I need to watch every so often.
Yeah.
Because it has such depth and it's so simplistic. And it takes you back to an era that, Ryan, I know you're too young to remember that era. Not that I was around in that era.
Jimmy
playing,
Wood. So was that his name?
I can appreciate the wood backboards. We have to go back to the great documentary that was done with Thomas Agee, and I forgot the other character's name, where they chronicled the two young men from Chicago.
Oh, Hoop Dreams.
Hoop Dreams. Yeah.
Hoop Dreams, yeah, from the 80s.
Excellent. Another excellent piece. Anytime you give me the backstory, like the one thing I'll share, this is just from the background of the Soldiers. I never will forget Calvin Andrews, who started the Soldiers with Marco Murillo. His name is now Hashim Al-Adin. When we first heard that LeBron was going to come out and play for the Soldiers, my guy Chris Dennis was one of the people. He was the first person to ever tell me about LeBron when LeBron was 12. And I remember him saying this to me. He said, "Carl, I'm telling you right now, this kid is better than Jason Kidd was in high school." And at the time I was working for Jason, and I'm like, "Chris, you got to be kidding me. I know how great Jason was in high school. He was ridiculously special." And he said, "I'm telling you, this kid is better." And he came and played for us in an event at UC Berkeley. That was when Ben Braun was playing. And I remember Calvin asking me a question after the 3-day event. He had played in 3 games with our top team. He was a 14-year-old freshman, had just finished his freshman year of high school, was a USA All-American. He said, "What do you think of the kid?" And he was talking about LeBron. And I said, and we were driving home, I said, "Calvin, he plays like he's 35 years old." I mean, he literally, his mind for the game was how advanced it looks today. That's how advanced he looked in comparison to high school kids then. He looked like a guy who had played at least 10 years playing professionally somewhere. He had a beautiful shot back then. It was beautiful. It was pure. It was smooth. The only thing I told Calvin he really needed to become special was to become athletic. He wasn't that athletic. He was a nice athlete, but he was 6'4", had a big natural, was kind of lean, but he wasn't like, he didn't jump off the page with his athleticism.
Insane.
That very next spring, he came and played for us in a tournament down in LA. We were playing at Cal State Dominguez Hills, and we're playing in the double pump tournament in a night game at 9:45. And we get to the arena. We get there late because we're coming from the airport. It picked up he and his mom, Gloria. We're rolling to the gym. We tell the guys, "You got to get dressed in the van because we got to run right to the game because the game's going to start." They literally, the refs had rolled the ball out to give it to the other team to not even have a jump ball because we were running late. They were going to forfeit the game. But we got there in time. We just told the 5 guys run right on the floor. Game was already starting. Probably about 8 to 10 minutes in the game, he gets a steal in the backcourt by our bench. He's pushing it up the floor with his left hand. He switches it into his right hand, and about right before top of the key, he starts going to the middle. And he had grown to 6'7" by then. And he took one more dribble and he took off in that signature hanging smash that he does. And he's a 10th grader at 15. And I looked at Calvin on the bench and I said, "This kid's going to be the greatest high school player ever." Because if he has this brain and now he's been sprinkled with great athleticism. It's impossible for him not to be special. And to
Bronny
stay
special?
excellent for that long is just ridiculous.
Nah.
Is Bronny special?
I think Bronny's special because Bronny looked like he has a ridiculous work ethic because he was a really good player. He was like a 4-star prospect who you can tell just watching him. One of my friend's sons played with him the last AAU summer, and he got to travel with him. And, they're traveling in these special vehicles. It was like being in Secret Service, taking backdoor entrances to get to the arenas and at the hotels. And it's very clear Bronny works, man, because stuff that you didn't see him doing as a 9th, 10th grader, he's doing it effortlessly now, and he's become extremely athletic. So if he stays on that pace, I think he's definitely destined to be a guy who's going to be an NBA player. How great you become really comes down to your work ethic. It goes back to what Giannis said. It's not the skills. There's a lot of guys that have skills today because they work on it so much. I still teach skills, so I know kids will work on the footwork and the jumpers and getting distance and work on the moves. The question is, do you become obsessed? And for a lot of people, it's hard to be obsessed when there's so many other things to grab your attention.
By the way, it just makes it even more crazy. Campolindo last year was in the open division state championship game. Aiden Mahaney, who's now just a star at St. Mary's, had like a Gordon Hayward half-court shot to try and send it into overtime, and it just barely missed. And that team, he's the only D1 player, and then it's Bennett's 2 kids were on it. But I thought it was just insane when I heard that. So they were in the state championship. The game before, in the round of 4 or whatever, the team that ended up losing and didn't go to the state championship was Sierra Canyon. And it's like LeBron's kid is like the 4th option on this team. And the fact that like they are like, it just is insane.
By the way, Mitchell and Ness says Teen Wolf, the movie Teen Wolf. So my connection to that is a guy who was great basketball player in the WCAL in the 80s for St. Ignatius, a guy named Jeff Glosser, went to Loyola Marymount. Do you remember Jeff Glosser? This was a guy that I used to dream of being this guy because he just played such great defense. Mr. Floor Burns. Anyway, he played because he went to Loyola Marymount. He was going to college down there. When that movie was made, Michael J. Fox was Teen Wolf. Michael J. Fox couldn't play basketball. This guy could play basketball. So all those scenes where you see Michael J. Fox playing basketball in the wolf costume, that's all Jeff Glosser.
Nice. It's so easy to fake it with the mask.
The Teen Wolf mask. Yeah, and he was a great high school basketball player. Really. And also, and one other on the list of movies over here, that one that I love is the documentary, the 30 for 30 on entitled The Guru of Go, on Paul Westhead at Loyola with Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball. So when I was junior in high school, my dad was like, "Hey, maybe you want to go to Loyola?" And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe." And they're like, "Well, it's spring break. Why don't we go down and check out the campus?" And, we'll stay down. So we flew down to LA, and it just so happens we get down there, and it's that year where they had this awesome team with Jeff Fryer and this and that. And it was the beginning of their year. It was like during the holiday. It was like Christmas time. And they're like, "Yeah, our basketball team's playing tonight against the Australian national team." My dad's like, "Oh, that's fun. Why don't we go get a couple tickets? We'll go check that out." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." Like, to this day, it was like the highest scoring game in like the history of college basketball. It was like 4-quarter game, and it was like 188-174. And my dad was like, at the end of the night, my dad was like, "That was a fun game." I'm like, "That was an incredible game." And we were watching the Guru of Go's team early in the year, and they just, it was awesome. It was an incredible show. So I do remember that. And it just, of course,
Lowry on that team, kid out of Oakland.
It was Jeff Fryer was the little white guard. They had Gathers, they had Kimball, they had
their schemer.
Yeah, and then they got out, they got the ball off the glass, 1 pass, 2 pass jumper, 1 pass, 2 pass layup. I mean, the pace, and the Australian national team were men, so they were professionals. So they were going up and down anyway, right? They ran right with them. So the pace got crazy. And I remember at the end of the game, my dad's like, that was a pretty entertaining basketball game. I told him about it like 15 years later. I'm like, Dad, that was not just a pretty entertaining basketball game. That was the highest scoring game like ever.
Ever.
You know,
That's crazy.
350
incredible to watch.
points. That's ridiculous.
I found 3 other movies like that I've seen that related to basketball. One is Leonardo DiCaprio, one of his earliest movies. I don't know if you folks ever saw that, The Basketball Diaries.
Yes.
Dark.
Yeah.
Like him and his buddy, I think it's Mark Wahlberg. They're just doing drugs and just banging like supermodels, and that was the whole movie. And they just played basketball.
Isn't that their life?
That's their whole life. Yeah, that's all they do. And then Glory Road, I thought it was a great movie.
Glory Road is great.
Yeah, because it's all about UTEP, and I always
Haskins.
think of UTEP and Tim Hardaway, and then and I didn't realize it had this like rich history, and then the last one I forgot all about, and this movie hit me hard, and it came out like when the pandemic came, and
Air Bud
had all sorts of dark shit going on, and it's Ben Affleck did amazing in the film,
really
way
good.
back.
Really,
Well,
really
you're talking about with my buddy Al Madrigal.
I don't know, but it's called The Way Back.
You're talking about
You seen
just this 2 years ago.
That's where he's the coach.
Yeah, you know,
He's
my
now
buddy
falling.
who I went to
Reclamation
St. Nations
Project.
with, Al Madrigal, is his assistant coach in that movie,
Oh,
and
that's
it's a very dark movie. It's about Ben Affleck, a basketball coach who has extreme alcoholism.
Yes, yeah.
and it's really gripping. Though.
Wait, the
yeah.
assistant coaches, you just interviewed him, right?
Yeah, I just
saw
had him on
Twitter.
Al Madrigal, and you actually
Yeah.
invited him on your show.
Correct. He's
Right.
the actor, and yes, he's
He's
the
in
actor in that.
He's in that movie.
Great film.
I think it's the
Great
same director that did Warrior, if you saw that, which is another just absolutely
film.
badass movie. That the one with Tom Hardy and Joel.
How about the great
saw
The
it, but-
Air Up There?
Oh, there.
I'll tell you, you know what's really good? The Last Days of Bobby Knight documentary.
Wow.
That's really good. And I'll tell you the other
Bobby
one
Knight's
that's really
awesome.
good, and it's an incredible team, is the documentary that they did on Phi Slamma Jamma.
Oh yes.
I mean, and I'll
When
say
they were
this: if
looking
I see
for,
Survive in Advance,
Benny Anders.
yeah, they're looking for Benny Anders, who was like the dunker extraordinaire on that team. But still, to me, the Survive in Advance with Valvano, and you know that scene where he's like, you know, Valvano just had unbelievable charisma, and that scene where he's talking and he's like, you know, he's talking in front of a group of people. He's like, you know, my father gave me the greatest gift of all. My father believed in me. And he said, my bags are packed. You're going to win the national championship. My bags are packed. And it was, I mean, I got to say Valvano, probably one of the more, I don't know. I mean, how would you describe, is it charismatic or
man?
What's that?
Yeah.
Did you ever meet him? You ever meet him, Carl?
Personality. He was very believable. Guys clearly wanted to play for him. They believed in him. They were pulling for coach. And that's rare. Most of the time, guys are pulling for the team. They're pulling for their own stats. They're pulling for, you know, the school, but to be pulling for the coach.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yep. All right, guys.
Oh, there's actually I should just mention, I haven't looked at any ratings or heard one single thing, but actually on Netflix, I remember seeing yesterday, there just got added a Bill Russell documentary.
Oh, I did see that. I saw that advertised this weekend. I want to check that out. Yeah, I was wondering if that's brand new, huh?
It's brand new.
Well, that would be, you know, Bill Russell. Carl, you ever meet Bill Russell?
I haven't had a chance. I had a chance to meet Bill. Needless to say, that Oakland connection is just huge. There's just been, you know, at one time, Oakland per capita had the most players in the NBA for a population their size to have had as many guys to make the NBA. I think there's more players from Oakland that have made the NBA than if you add up all the other counties together in any one period of time. It's been amazing. I mean, it's been like I think 3 from San Jose, you know, a few from San Francisco, few from other parts of the East Bay. But to have one city have as many guys make the NBA, and think about it. Very soon there will be 4 guys from Oakland who'll be in the Hall of Fame?
Lillard,
Russell,
Kidd, Gary
Kidd,
Payton,
Ooh.
and the great Bill Russell.
dang.
And technically, I don't know if Paul Silas would get in posthumously, but Paul Silas potentially could be a Hall of Fame.
Wasn't Paul Pierce born in Oakland, or
He was born in Oakland but raised in Inglewood.
oh, okay,
He's an LA guy.
doesn't count.
He was great. He was great
25.
too. You think about it. There's been some incredible players coming out of Oakland for sure. All right, gentlemen, very entertaining live stream. Thanks to everybody. You got a final word as we before we say goodnight? Shardal, I know you wanted to be on tonight, and I said call in, but we didn't take calls. We had so many people in the room, so hopefully we can do it another night. Grilled Cheese is great show.
No one
Tonight,
likes a
guys.
sausage
Appreciate
party,
you
Larry.
all. Carl,
No
come
one likes
back
a
soon.
sausage party.
That's
No one likes
right.
a sausage party.
Yeah.
Unless it's your sausage guy.
We
Then that's
have to put Ryan in the time machine, Cyrus.
How to?
Time machine hot tub, baby. We got to put you in there.
Wait, by the way, this was one question that I've always wondered. Do you happen to know if LeBron, you know how he usually had his normal shoe, and then he also came out with the LeBron Soldier, which was like the iPhone SE or whatever the heck, you know what I mean? Like it was just halfway through the year usually. Was that because of the Oakland Soldiers? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, the Soldiers are still sponsored by Nike and part of the EYBL circuit.
Let's go.
The Air Zoom Soldier, as it was called.
Oh, I had some sweet Soldiers.
Hey, if I said to you right now, Carl, because you were just at De La Salle with Danny's brother the other day watching some games, who's the best basketball player in high school in the Bay right now? Do you know?
Wow. I know there's a kid who plays at Oakland High. I don't get a chance to see it as much. That's really good. He's a guard. I think he's like a 6'3", 6'4" point guard. The challenge you have is you also have to add in Prolific Prep, which is the prep school in Napa. And they have some of the best players on the planet that are, 17, 18 and under, because they have so many kids that will migrate to where they are to come play for them. That's Jeremy Rosati's program. He and Phil Doherty, who, if I'm not mistaken, went to SI.
Phil Doherty of MVP Flight.
Oh, yes.
My former
there are two Phil Dohertys.
Oh, so
MVP
it's
Flight Phil, and then there's Phil Doherty, who's the younger one. One is connected to Chris Werlow, the great Chris Werlow.
My guy.
Hey, there are legends on that part of the Caldecott.
Greatest high school player I've ever seen, right here, Jason Kidd.
Hey, Kid.
From St. Joe's in
I
Alameda.
remember being in CYO and going into the diocese tournament, and I remember my dad's like, yeah, if you score 20 points, they put you in like the little booklet for the Oakland Diocese. And I was like, oh, I want to do that so badly. And I just remember looking in there, and it was just nonstop, just Jason Kidd, 39, 35. It was just all Jason Kidd. And then, there were some other greats in there too, but it was crazy.
The one thing that I tell people that really such a separator for him, Jason Kidd used to sell out Oracle Arena, which back then was just the Coliseum, for high school games.
Yeah.
For his team to play Bishop O'Dowd, or if they made it to the champion. I mean, he would sell the place out. Literally. Yes, there were a lot of alumni would go to see their team, St. Joe's against Bishop O'Dowd, but Jason Kidd was really the magnet. I mean, he
played in the summer pro-am as a high schooler, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Akizar? Great stuff, man.
I always heard that.
Guys, good stuff. We're 2 hours and 48 minutes into our live stream. It's 12:30 in the morning. We're going to call it quits. Carl, you're the man. Cy, you're the man. Rye, you're the man. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Until next time, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no.